Any better? Are we better off? Okay, we're good. Well, we got Maximo, we got Glitch, we got the Buzzler, we got Aria. All right. We got some people in here. Make sure you guys hit that like button and please share. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the stream. Make sure you guys hit that like button, please. Please. Help me send this stream out to as many people as possible. Is that a satanic symbol in the background? No. I mean, it can be used by Satanists, but it's not inherently Satanist by itself. That symbol has existed for millennia. Long before the Satanists came about, trust me. Long before the Satanists came about, pagans were carving that shit in trees. It's more a pagan symbol than anything. Hi, Biggie. Do you have any advice on how to deal with a toxic coworker? Sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends a little bit on what kind of workplace it is. I mean, ultimately, your best tactic with a toxic coworker is probably going to be avoidance. Like, keep something in mind, okay? You might be a social person, but you're not there to make friends, right? It sounds harsh, sounds mean, and it doesn't mean you can't be friends with someone that you work with, okay? But you're not there to do that, right? Ideally, if you're in a customer service position or something like that, you've got the customers to kind of get that social battery worked out. If you're the kind of person like me who needs that, right? I crave that kind of social interaction, which is one of the reasons I can stand doing this, right? Because I absolutely crave socialization. Some people don't. Some people are perfectly fine with it. If you're the kind of person who needs that and you want to be friends with them, you want to be friendly with everybody in your department, but you can't be with that specific person, then you might just have to cut your losses on that one, you know? There are more advanced tactics that you can try if you really think you'll be successful with them, but I wouldn't advise most people try it just because I feel like it's not usually going to work out in their favor. Like, I can't give specific advice for your specific situation that is definitely going to work out for you, because there are going to be variables that you're not going to tell me about, and there are going to be things in that situation that I don't know for sure. So that is an Israel symbol? Okay, well, that's an interesting conspiracy theory. I am certainly not pro-Israeli. So what's up, Pink Fur? If the stars originated down, then it's satanic. Do what? Huh? What's going on? What are you saying? Are you like 10 feet from the tracks? Dang, that's loud. Yes, literally. Yeah, no, unironically, yes. I probably live closer to tracks of this speed than, well, let me just put it this way. I've traveled most of the continental United States, and I have never, ever driven over any other level crossing that is in a rural area like this with residences this close to it, or with a residence. I say that like there's a bunch of neighbors around us. But I've never, in my fucking 3 years of traveling in a minivan all over this country, I never saw it. So I would not be surprised if the house I live in is literally the closest house to a rural main line in America. It would not shock me, unironically. Remember to like the stream and send super chats to make sure your comment is read. Yes, please. You guys are the lifeblood of this stream, the lifeblood of this channel, frankly, but you're also the lifeblood of the stream. So please hit that like button. Please hit the share button. Either way helps me out a ton, and I appreciate it. And we really I want to talk about this ICE shit. I want to talk about the 2 people shot in Portland. That is what I want to discuss today. But I'm not going to lie. I kind of want to talk about it to more than 36 people. Because I feel like otherwise, eventually the viewers are going to like go up, and then I'm going to have to re-explain myself a bunch of times. We can avert all that by hitting the button now, please. Phoebe, pink fur. You should grow a handlebar. I literally cannot grow facial hair. It's because you live in Mississippi? Well, yeah, but like there are other states, like there are other southern states too. Thank you for the gifts. Look at that, Maximo Tibus. Thank you. There are other states with like weak zoning restrictions and things like that that would probably allow a setup like this too. But you know, they're all located in the deep South. To be sure, to be fair, you know, they're probably all located in the deep South. And two, like the main reason why this even happened was like kind of like a lack of availability of land thing, or it's like an opportunity of circumstance. I don't know how else you'd put it. Like we probably like I didn't even, I say we, like it was my family. It was, but not my direct family. It was like, you know, 2 generations ago, yeah, more or less, that decided to put a house originally even closer to the tracks than my actual house is right now, because this is just an off building, like an outbuilding that is actually about as close as the old house was to the tracks. The other one is not as close. It's like 20 feet away from them. But point is, what was I saying? Point is, it was a thing, like it was an opportunity of fucking convenience, you know? Like the land was here, the high ground was near the railroad tracks, so that's how it had to happen. Charlie Kirk was correct about what? Charlie Kirk had a lot of things to say. I don't know that he was correct about any of them. I mean, I guess maybe he said the sky is blue every so often. I don't know. I imagine there's something the dude said at some point or another that was probably right. South bad, South bad, South bad, South bad, South bad. I don't think the South is bad inherently, but I do think we're in dire need of some improvement. We don't like repairing our roads down here, I'll tell you that much. We're not a big fan of road repairs. What's your favorite hobby? Probably music. It's the one I've stuck with the longest, certainly. I've been singing since I was 5, and I've been playing guitar since I was 14. No, I wasn't 14. What am I kidding? I was 16. Yeah, I was 16. Yeah, I remember because I started driving and playing guitar roughly the same year. Like, I had been learning to drive for a few years before that, but you know what I mean? So, probably music. It's probably the thing I've stuck with the longest, probably the thing I've dedicated the most hours to. I guess you could consider this a hobby, and I try to kind of look at it as one, just like a hobby that happens to make me money, because I feel like as long as I do that, I will remain passionate about it, you know? Travel to another country and see how you get treated. I bet you won't, because you know what you're doing is wrong. So I don't know if you realize this, but Germany, pro-trans. Denmark, pro-trans. Sweden, pro-trans. Finland, pro-trans. The UK, starting to become a little transphobic now, but the medical system is still overwhelmingly pro-trans. France, pro-trans. The Netherlands, overwhelmingly pro-trans. There's literally a phrase called the Dutch Protocol that refers to the preferred way of going about treating transgender youth that was developed in the Netherlands. So, Spain, pro-trans. Italy, pro-trans. Fucking, like, how many more countries? Like, Australia, pro-trans. Like, Canada. We're up to 16 now. Mexico, 17. A lot of South America is cool with trans people too. So like, honestly, like I can't travel to Arabia, but I bet your fucking ass isn't too eager to go to Saudi Arabia either, bitch. So shut up about what I can and can't do, okay? Oh, sick, a Redditor stream. You know, it's kind of ironic that you say that because it's only in the last year that I even took up Reddit. For years, I was a Facebook girly. Then I quit Facebook. And then for a while, I just didn't really have any social media besides YouTube. And now I have gotten back into a few things, and we're going to get into that here in a minute, but you guys need to hit that like button. Please hit that like button. It is the best way you can help out the stream. There are hella LGBT people in Mexico. Hella gay people in Mexico. I forgot I had a plant there. Hella gay people in Mexico. Hella trans people in Mexico. It's great. From what I understand, I mean, Mexico is a country that is quite a bit farther along now than they were like 20 years ago. People haven't really started to recognize that fact, and they haven't started to register it yet because there's still like a little bit of an overpopulation problem, and there's still like a wide incentive for people to pass through Mexico on their way to illegally immigrating to the United States, right? So like there's still an incentive there for, so like, you know, racist ass white people in America think Mexico and they think illegal immigrants, which is fucking stupid, by the way, because like from my understanding, like there are tons and tons of people who immigrate from Mexico completely fucking legally and they're just fine. It's also bullshit because, like, hatred towards illegal immigrants is not justified and is ultimately just a way to distract the working class and keep us pitted against each other. But we can get into that a different time, right? People have these preconceptions about Mexico that misinform them about the nature of the developmental state of the country. Talkers hit like as payment for shit talking. Yes, shit talkers. Yes, that I get that. Being trans isn't a political party, it's a choice. Well, it's neither a political party nor a choice. You don't choose to be trans. You choose to come out as trans. You choose to like let other people know that you are trans, but it is not a choice to be trans. Mexico has very strong south borders. I don't have any fucking problem with us having strong borders, honestly. Like, I do in principle, but like functionally, pragmatically right now, like if it would satiate people, I'm okay coming over on that point. But the problem is I'm not a big border person to begin with. So if we're going to have strong borders, as in a difficult to traverse border or something like that, then I think we need to introduce strong fucking immigrant protections and reforms to the immigration system that allow people to come in at a greater rate and be processed more quickly and to have their status assessed more quickly. Because if we're not going to be letting them in illegally, then we need to start letting them in legally because we need them. We need them. Trump has not deported enough people for our growing seasons to be thrown off yet, but I would be willing to fucking bet that spring 2026 and harvest time 2026 are going to reveal some real deficits in the agricultural sector. Because I've just seen the news stories popping up. Last harvest season was when I first started to see them. See, as a person who descended from agricultural stock, I know a little bit. I stay up to it, right, on what's going on in the lives of farmers. Even though I come from a smallholder family, I stay up to date with what's going on in big ag, right? Because that is the main front of oppression for smallholder families like mine. And I was seeing all kinds of news stories around harvest time last year about how farmers are already starting to see massive hurts to their profits and massive increases in labor prices because we have fucking completely fucked up the system with no remedy whatsoever. Now, there are big structural fucking formative remedies that need to happen for all of this to normalize. But you can't, like, this is why just mass deporting, like, yes, I agree with people when they say, well, having a bunch of undocumented people in your country that ostensibly probably aren't taxes that they should be, and that have kind of like an underlying incentive to do identity theft is a bad thing. I agree. But why is the solution not bring more of these people into the fold? Make it easier for them to get legal. Make it easier for us to fucking track their tax contributions. Make it easier for us to validate their identities. It's not like Mexico doesn't issue you a fucking social security number. Maybe it's not called that down there, but they do. Like, you can trace the background of a person born in Mexico, and it's not that hard. The main reason why we don't do more of that, the main reason is because we in America have for a long time now, it's not just Trump, for a long time now, we have preferred an enforcement-based model when it comes to immigration, rather than a systemic model that processes people faster, that places emphasis on beefing up the system that gets people through, right? Beefing up the system that vets people and gets people into the correct, like placements for, like, whether they're asylum or whether they're going to be like green card fucking candidate eventually or whatever, right? I'm not a fucking immigration judge, so I can't sit here and tell you exactly how the legal process should work. But what I do know is that this immigration-based model hasn't worked. Trump has ramped it up massively, and all it's caused is the murder of a woman at the hands of ICE, an American citizen no less, who was just trying to go get her kids from school. Literally was being told at the same time to leave and to get out of the car. So you have two officers telling her to leave, and you have one officer grabbing the handle of her door, and yanking it back and forth and saying, "Get out." And terrified and panicked, like any American would be approached by masked federal agents, she reversed, chalked her wheels far to the right, outside of the direction. Literally, you can see the fucking path of the tires in the video, Don't tell me not to believe my lion eyes. Don't tell me not to believe my lion ears, because I know what I saw. I know what I saw. I know what I fucking saw. And you can see her tires chalk sharply to the right and her start to drive in what she hopes is the direction out of the situation, like she's being told to do, in her terrified, panicked state, where she's got two masked thugs on the right of her saying, stop, stop, leave, leave. And she's got two masked thugs on the left of her saying, stop, stop, get out, get out. In her panicked and flurried state, she still managed to make the right choice, which was try to drive out of the direction of human harm. And in multiple court cases, by the way, the United States Supreme Court and lower courts have both held that it is not enough for you to be merely in the vicinity of the front of a car for you to justify shooting at them. No, that car has to be actively coming towards you with no indication of turning, and it has to be possible for that car to get to you. The video is clear. That woman was murdered. Look at the New York Post article about her. I don't need to know anything about her background. I don't care. I don't care if she was literally Osama bin Laden's daughter and was planning to redo 9/11. Prosecute her then. I don't give a fuck. I'm sorry, Maximo. I don't care what her background was. I don't care. We know for a fact that she was in the fucking neighborhood where she lived. We know for a fact that she was going to pick up her kids from school. And we know for a fact that she reverses and chalks her wheels to the right out of the direction of the fucking shooting officer. The murderer, that killed her. What's up, pretty cool guy? By the way, please make sure you guys hit that like button. It really does help. Every single time you hit that like button is another chance to stream out to even more people, which increase the quality of your viewing pleasure by increasing the number of people engage in the chat. It was towards them. Literally, don't believe your lion eyes. Don't believe your lion ears. We all saw the video. You realize Donald Trump had his assistant pull up the video, and when shown the video and actually like taken through the video by the New York Post reporters he was talking about, or the New York Times reporters he was talking to, he was like, he had no defense for it. He was like, yeah, that's horrible. I don't have anything to say about that. That was basically Donald Trump's reaction to being shown the slowed down video. So don't come to me and tell me that that woman wasn't murdered in cold blood. She was, and every fucking one of you little Nazi fascists know it. You know it, and you are running cover right now for a man who would be fucking willing to shoot you dead in the street if it means advancing his agenda. By the way, hit that like button. Let's see here. Let's do all messages, and then let's do... we're going to limit it to subscribers, so you're going to have to subscribe if you want to send a message, which is not censorship, by the way. I know I'm going to get that argument. This is merely to make sure that the bots and spammers are filtered out, and we are left with only the sauciest, zestiest, and festiest of cool viewers to discuss with. The people who really want to argue, the people who really want to have a fucking structured debate. I'm sorry, actually, I can't do a structured debate, but I can do a healthy argument. Once J.D. Vance said ICE agents had infinite immunity to get shot in Portland, I know. Okay, so let's talk about it some more. Okay, so J.D. Vance and multiple different people in the government, by the way, it's not just J.D. Vance, but multiple people in the government now have said that ICE agents don't just have qualified immunity, that they have unlimited immunity or something like that, like infinity immunity, some shit. I don't remember exactly how he put it, but it was like, no, they have, number one, that man has unlimited immunity. What the fuck does that mean? So does that mean like an ICE officer can just like, oh my God, I don't even know where to get started with this shit, because I remember this shit and then I remember a different angle of it. So in the same press conference where J.D. Vance said that shit about infinite immunity or whatever the fuck, he was also talking about how the ICE operation that was being conducted in that neighborhood was apparently a door-to-door immigration operation. As in, the same exact shit that the Nazis did to the Jews. Unironically, the same exact shit that the Nazis were doing to the Jews. unironically the same shit. This is no different than what the Nazis were doing to the Jews. Literally no different. Literally during the Holocaust era, that was the most common tactic for gathering up Jewish hiding people that were hiding from the fucking Jewish fugitives. I couldn't think of the word. But the most common tactic for rounding up Jewish fugitives, after everyone with a star that was just openly walking around had been gathered off the streets and shipped in cattle cars to places like Birkenau and Auschwitz, the next common tactic that happened was to literally go door to door to German citizens and ask them if they were hiding Jews in their attics and basements. Literally, every German citizen suddenly became a suspect in some grand scheme to hide the Jews from the German government. Just like right now, every American citizen is currently a suspect in some supposed grand scheme, according to the federal government, to hide illegal immigrants, who, by the way, are just the new Jews. They're America's version of the Jews. The immigrant problem is America's version of the JQ. I'm not even kidding. Nope, they're not you want them to be two totally different situations, because if they're not two totally different situations, that means that you voting MAGA means you voted for a Nazi. It means that you still supporting MAGA means you voted for and still support a Nazi. And I think it's one thing to have voted for him, right? I think there's plenty of people that voted for Trump for pretty innocuous reasons, who looked at his first administration like I did and thought he's probably going to be a lame duck like he was the first time around. Trump really didn't manage to get that much done in his first round, so nobody expected any of this garbage in his second round. A lot of people voted for him. I forgive you guys. But if you're still defending his ass after he starts an illegal war with Venezuela, helps enter into a fucking illegal war with Iran at the behest of Israel, continues a needless fucking conflict in Ukraine with Russia, after he fucking continuously rounds people up out of America's cities and ships them off to God only knows where, after he continuously makes excuses for his fucking people, his fucking little Gestapo ICE army killing people openly on the streets. You are a cultist. If you are still supporting that shit through all this shit, you have lost your mind. Roosevelt is the worst president, but is he worse than Donald Trump? What? Acquisition of Greenland, probably? What now? What's going on? Hey, Robert, calm down. Good guess, but that's not my dead name. Don't think you read the whole article on what happened. I'm with my buddy. You don't like the U.S. Get out of here. Had to subscribe just to tell you to leave the U.S. then. See, if I had the money, I would love to leave this fucking shit heap of a goddamn country, because it is full of illiterate morons like you, who don't know which way is up, who don't know their ass from a hole in the ground, who are just waiting for the next strongman daddy to tell them what to do, who are just stupid enough to fucking not ask for higher wages and just smart enough to run the machines and sign all the paperwork. You people are lost. I did not hit a bong, okay? By the way, please hit that like button. Also, I have an announcement to make. I has an announcement to make. If you have been wanting to follow my social medias, if you've been a long-time subscriber of mine, or you just like watching the streams or whatever, please check the description below where you can find my social medias. I am, going to be posting on my Instagram account and my X account again. I've already started posting quite a bit on X again, but I'm going to be renewing my interest in Instagram as well. And I would appreciate it if you guys would go give those accounts a follow. If you've wanted to follow me somewhere else for a while, that will be a great way for you guys to make sure that you can keep up with me no matter what happens to the YouTube channel. Because YouTube's a fickly mistress. You know, she can be a little, What country would you leave to? Real talk, probably the Netherlands. If I could afford to just go anywhere, probably the Netherlands. I hate that I'm giving this liberal money, but I gotta say, Trump is the best president in this world. Well, thank you for the $4.99. Number one, I'm not a liberal. I'm a leftist. I consider liberals to be almost as shitty as conservatives and Republicans are, because they pretty much just normalize you guys' policies every time they're elected. That being said, I don't even think Trump is the best president in recent United States history, much less the world. There are way more presidents that have done way more positive things for their people. Like, okay, let me ask you this. Person who super chatted, Drunken Knifing Ducks. Nice. I like that username. I'll just say that much. I like that username. I'm gonna heart your super chat just for that username, even though I don't like the rest of it. But I do appreciate the $4.99. What has Trump done to improve your life individually in particular? I'm just curious. Like, how did his policy make your life materially better? Not like ideologically better, but like materially better. Like, sure, you can say, oh, well, he says the things I like. Well, Joe Biden said the things I like, but he didn't make my life better, so I don't like him. You know, Joe Biden said plenty of stuff that I liked, but, you know, like Kamala Harris said plenty of stuff that I liked, but like she didn't commit to any policies and didn't make my life better in any way, so I didn't commit to her ticket, you know? So I don't know why so many people are so desperate to support Trump when they can even cite to me a way that he's improved their lives in particular individually. You're a specie sausage? Okay, well, thank you. I guess. I guess. I don't think any president yet has actually improved my life or anyone I know's lives at all. There you go. Exactly. You are 100% right. Yes, you are 100% right in that fucking in that assessment. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. I do think Trump might be playing his part in the agenda to bankrupt us all. I mean, that's kind of what I think. Like, what else would you be able to think? You know, like he's not. Like, frankly, you would need some hardcore socialist shit to kind of dig us out of the hole that we're in, you know? Like, you have to tax the rich, and Trump is ardently against taxing the rich. Are you black? Very slightly. But no, I don't identify as black or anything, you know? I don't have any, let me put it this way. Whatever black ancestor I had, which I had to have one within the last 300 years, or 23andMe wouldn't have even detected it, right? Because everybody has a little bit of African DNA, or at least that's the big theory. But, you know, like most of that is like distributed so far throughout the genetic code that it doesn't stand out. And I have at least one ancestor, like one line off my family tree at some point in the last 300 years was a black person. But my family has no fucking clue who that was, what line it was down. I don't even know where to start looking with that. Like, and honestly, the fact that I'm so white means that it was probably just that like one branch of my family, some odd generations back, had some slaves or were sharecroppers that shared land with slaves or recently freedmen, and intermingled there. Or like, because like, you know, coming from a poor family in the South, there's a very fucking low chance that my family ever owned slaves, because like most of the like slave owning families in the South remained rich, and most of their descendants are rich to this day. Most of them have positions of political power and shit like that. So the fact that I come from, and like, you know, like one part of my family literally has been in the deep South for hundreds of years, but I have to assume that they were fucking poor sharecroppers throughout that entire line, because, you know, like that kind of wealth just tends to trickle down. Like if you've got like a plantation in the family, eventually, sure, the plantation gets sold, but like usually the proceeds get divided amongst benefactors, and you would expect that to, you know, trickle on down. And if there wasn't, like if there was some point at which the family's fortunes shifted or something, you would expect that to be a big chapter in the family's history. And for at least one branch of my family, we have like 200 years of history recorded. Maybe more, actually, like 250 years of history recorded. Let me see. I appreciate you rolling with the punches, even though you're a hardcore black liberal. Well, you know, I appreciate the $5. Thank you. I'm not going to say anything hateful towards you. I'm just praying for you because you're confused. Okay, cool. Hey, Phoebe, the United States weren't the only country to help slaves or to have slaves. Ever else had slaves? Stop saying the USA. I Did I say that? When the fuck did I say the United States was the only country that did slavery? That's just retarded. Don't misquote me. Don't put shit, like, don't put words in my mouth, okay? I hate that. You suck at any opinion. I subscribe to comment. Okay, cool. Thank you for your enlightening comment. Would you run away or roll away from ICE agents if they try to get you? Well, considering that I'm white as the driven snow, and considering that I have a social media career, I mean, it would probably be in my best interest to just, like, roll with it, honestly. Probably be in my best interest because the Streisand effect would massively increase my profile. Like the fact that, like, a trans leftist YouTuber who's been openly critical of Trump just goes missing into ICE's unaccountable system would be a massive rallying point for leftists. So yeah, I'd go with it. I would let myself be arrested by ICE because I would love to be a martyr for the cause. I would love to show people, like, this is what happens. Like, the more you let this shit happen, and when I did eventually get out, like every fucking US citizen that they end up locking up does, I'm going to have 400,000 more subscribers waiting for me when I get back. So I don't know, man. Bring it on, I guess. Please, Trump, make me a millionaire. Nobody would give a shit, bro. Say that to all the random small-time fucking people who have been randomly... You realize Hawk Tuah Girl was literally just a random nobody on the street that only happened to become famous, and really, like, she capitalized on her fame almost by accident? Like, you realize she was a literal nobody before she got discovered, and she was literally discovered for illustrating, like, one way to give fellatio, you know? Like, you're acting like it takes some act of God to make someone famous in America, especially among certain circles. Like, being famous in a niche is one of the easiest things to do in America if you've got a little bit of charisma and a little bit of willingness to put yourself out there and to make good deals for your own self-promotion. It is not that hard to attain, especially in the day and age of YouTube and TikTok. Anybody can be a celebrity now. Some of y'all are the worst right-wingers. Like, dog, people have different opinions. I love reasonable right-wing people in the chat, like, because you guys are always like, man, some of you guys are just fucking weird. I don't even like being adjacent to y'all. And I just love to see that, you know? Because the reality of it is, I always make a distinction between normal people on the right and maggots, right? Like, I don't think every fucking person on the right is a hardcore Trump fan that wants to defend his every action through every fucking thing and thinks that the moment you make fun of Trump is justification to wish your death and all this other shit. There are a very small contingent of people on the right that are that hardcore, that are that adamant about it, that are that vitriolic. VBOF, are Germanics more barbarian than Russians, or does their Hunnic tribe genes cancel out each other? Fucking ask a phrenologist. Sorry, bud. You're gonna have to ask a phrenologist about that one. My my 17th century race realism, like, knowledge does not extend that far. You know, I can use the spirit board real quick, and we can try to conduct a seance. Here, you guys want to see if we can get a 17th century phrenologist on the line to see whether or not Germans or Russians are more barbaric, or if their Hunnic genes cancel out each other? I think it'd be interesting. You know, let's sum it up. You know, all right. Okay, I've never done a seance before, but we're gonna try this. Okay, orange shit. Okay, I'm in Mississippi. I know there's got to be a ghost of at least 1,000 fucking phrenologists sitting around this place. I'm going to need one of y'all to make an appearance right now, because we got a question. Any phrenologists in the house? I don't think it's working, guys. I'm afraid it's not working. I wanted it to work, but I don't think we're going to get a hold of any 18th century phrenologists. It would be really hilarious if a ghost just, like, appeared on the couch beside me and was like, all right, what would you like to know? You know? Like, I don't know what accent they would have. Let me see. You know, it's interesting. like the deep South accent that we really think about nowadays, like the generalized Southern accent, is kind of like a product of the last 60 years. Because before that, like if you look 100 years ago, or if you talk to like really old Southerners, you will notice very fucking distinct Southern accents. Nowadays, they're becoming more generalized. But if you think about it, right? So like, there were all kinds of like fucking like there was all kinds of like British influence and French influence going on in certain parts of the Deep South. Obviously, like English influence was all over the fucking Deep South, and Irish influence too. And so there are like weird varieties of the Southern accent. And if you're thinking of one that's like, you know, in the antebellum era, man, lots of variations there. I suppose the one most everybody is most familiar with is the one of the Southern plantation owner. It's but I like the Southern aristocrat accent, you know. But I feel like when I do it, it's more like a New Orleans thing, you know. I can't really get the distinctions down between the Cajun and the Southern aristocrat. Don't insult people's appearance. Instead, insult their nationalities, for that is something they can control. What? That is fucking hilarious. You talk about people being MAGA. Do you know what that means? To us, it's all about making America great. You hate it so much, you're free to skip over the border like the illegals. Man, you have assumed everything there is to know about my position from hearing me say one bad thing about MAGA. This is why I make fun of you guys. Okay? Because you guys can say all the bad things you want about liberals and lefties, and if it's funny and fucking right, I might agree with you even. You know, like, if it's wrong, I'll just be like, oh, well, that's stupid for this and that reason, but whatever. You know, like, I don't scream at you guys in all caps because you disagree with me or find me to have a political affiliation that's disagreeable. But you guys are willing to scream at liberals and lefties for having the wrong opinion all day long. Like, overall. I'm not saying every single one of you is, obviously. When people look up the definition of yapping, the link to this channel appears. Damn, my SEO is pretty good. That's good. I disagree. Boo! Hey, Phoebe, why are you trans? Because not being trans made me feel like awful and a liar and disingenuine and ugly. And being out as trans makes me feel far less so. In fact, I kind of feel like my authentic self. You know, like, for like the last 5 years, 6 years almost, I've been living as a woman, and it has been the best 6 years of my life. So I don't think that means I made the wrong decision. I think that means I made the right decision, you know? I was about to do a double negative, and that would have been bad. Hey, Phoebes, are you all alone in here? Divinity, I think I might be. As in, are there mods? Yeah, I don't know. There might not be. Remember, we let most of the trolls slide by. Only the really egregious ones get to go away. Don't insult appearances. La 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 la. Performative empathy. Love it, dude. Love it. You gotta love it. Performative empathy. That's what it's called when you're trying to not be a petty bastard. Like, and I'm not even the kind of person who cares about whether or not you insult my looks. Insult my looks all day long. I would certainly insult yours if I could see them. I just can't, so I don't have the opportunity. But I would. You know, if somebody's going to be mean to me, I have no problem being mean back to them. It's not a moral argument that I would make against making fun of somebody. However, if that's all somebody has, I do think that there's a very valid point to be raised. And like, is there anything else to your argument besides you a dum-dum? You know? Thank you for joining the membership, Tweedledee. I appreciate it. By the way, you guys should join the membership because we are going to be doing a members-only live stream tomorrow on Friday. So please join the membership tomorrow on Friday, probably around 9 p.m. CST, I would say. Probably around 9 p.m. CST. I don't know what we're going to be covering. Probably some news shit, but we're going to be there. It's going to be fun. I encourage you all to attend, but you have to be a member to be able to watch it live and to be able to see it, you know. The keyboard warriors that end up insulting people's appearances are always the strangest ones. Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree, honestly. That's one of the reasons why I say I would make fun of their appearance if I could, you know, is because, like, whatever, ugly as I might be, at least I'm in front of you guys. You guys can make you can make a judgment call about my appearance. whereas I've got no such opportunity with random people in the chat. Please hit that like button, by the way. You guys can help the stream out massively and immensely by liking the stream. Do we want to talk about the two people shot in Portland today, by the way? Is that something we want to talk about? Do you live in Portland? No. I do have quite a few friends in Portland, though. How do you think Trump's presidency will affect strawberry prices in Algeria? I really don't think so. You know, I really don't think that they're going to affect them at all. I think the Algerian people will have a perfectly fine time selling their strawberries. People are shot every day. People are not shot by masked federal agents every day. That is a fucking hilarious level of cognitive dissonance. And I just love it, right? Like, I'm the kind of person that would criticize this, whether it was happening under a Democrat or a Republican. But for some reason, about a third of the country can only criticize this shit when it happens under their fucking, like, their political enemy, you know? So if it's their president, if it's the president that they align with, oh, they love it. Excuses all day long. Now, if the Border Patrol had shot 2 people under Biden's presidency, oh, man. Oh, dude, the right wing would be so pissed about it. Oh, you guys would hate it. You guys would be so mad. Oh, man, especially 2 American citizens, too? Because we don't even know who the fucking people involved were. The feds have already crafted a narrative, even though they had not identified the people in the car, as in they had not pulled them over and gotten their IDs and got positive confirmation on them. They just thought that they looked like the 2 people that they were after. Literally, the town officials have came out and said, we don't know what to tell you because we don't know anything about anything in this case yet. This is a case so fresh and early that we don't even know what's happened. And it's not like the customs, it's like Border Patrol did not, like I say, they did not conduct some kind of proper investigation that just went awry. They hadn't even identified these 2 people yet. If they had, then it wouldn't be 2 shot in Portland with anonymous details and vague, you know, like total vagaries. We would know for a fucking fact how these people died, or I'm sorry, what their names were. We would know, like, fucking, or not how they died, but we would know, like, how the situation unfolded. We would know the background information and probably where they're at now. Like, we don't even know who the fuck these people were, and that's according to the town officials in Portland. And personally, I trust the town officials of Portland, Oregon, a hell of a lot more than I trust fake tan bad bronzer line Donald Trump, war criminal child rapist Donald Trump. Sorry, not my fucking number 1 pick of trust. If you have a kid, why are you out of state being a nuisance? Dude, you can't even spell the word nuisance. You can't even spell the word fucking nuisance. You're out here fucking trying to condemn how other people are living. Far as I know, that chick was living in the fucking neighborhood where her kid went to, like, I don't know, man. She was literally going to pick up her kid from school, from my understanding. I don't know where this idea comes from, that she was just, like, gallivanting around the country, fucking pissing off ICE people. But the idea that she was even at a protest is completely wrong. She was leaving her house, or someone's house, at least in her neighborhood, leaving a house, trying to get out amongst all the cars that were there, trying to leave, and she was being told by 2 officers, leave, get out of here, leave. And she was being told by another 2 officers, one who was pulling on her fucking the door handle of her door real hard, to get out, had guns pointed at her and shit. She didn't know what the fuck to do. She made a panic decision, and still, in that instance, made the right decision in reversing and chalking her wheels to the right before attempting to drive away, before she was murdered in cold blood by a masked federal agent. Yeah, so much for no tyranny, right? Well, here, you know what? If this is how the right wing feels about this, then here's a little take about Charlie Kirk. I don't give a fuck that your stupid little conservative daddy got shot in the neck. Glad he's dead. Faggot ass should have died sooner. Wow, wow. Don't act morally outraged, you fucking dumbwits. Don't act morally outraged now, you fucking midwits. You guys spent the last 20 minutes justifying the murder of an American citizen by a masked federal agent. I don't want to hear it. You don't have a fucking ounce of humanity in your soul. You use murder as a cudgel. You use human death and human life as a moral cudgel for your positions. You don't give a fuck. Unlike me, I'll tell you the truth. I was bullshitting with what I just said right then. I don't feel that way about Charlie Kirk. But I do know that you guys use death as a moral cudgel and don't give a fuck when human life is shed in furtherance of the state's interests. You only give a fuck when human life is shed against the state interest. You only give a fuck when human life is shed that was making an argument for the fucking bourgeoisification of the entire planet. You only give a fuck when the person who died was one of your little political babies. That's when you give a fuck. You all celebrated Kirk's death? I didn't! Fucker! Fuck you! And if you're willing to throw away the lives of an American citizen because the wrong people made fun of the wrong guy, then you don't have an ounce of fucking humanity in you. And you are the one who should leave America. You are the illness that must be scourged from our population. You are the cancer that we must have radiated out of us. Either both murders were wrong or both murders were morally okay. You can't have it both ways. Sorry. You want to fucking justify murder for political reasons? Two can play at that game, bitch. Brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth. Motherfucker with not a tooth in their head talking to me about my fucking teeth needing brushed. Motherfucker that wears dentures telling me I need to brush my teeth. Get a life, pal. I have a question. Do you like America? I fucking love America. I love this goddamn country. Hate its fucking government most of the time, but I love the country. I love the Grand Canyon. I love ice cream. I love hot dogs. I love hamburgers. I love pizza, all of which are American inventions. I love the swamps of the South. I love the pine trees of California. I love the mountains of Colorado and the mountains of New Mexico. I love the Mexican people of New Mexico. I love the Texans. I love the Mississippians. I love the Massachusettsers, the massholes, as we call them. I love the whole shebang. I love it from stem to stern, from sea to oily sea. So can you explain why you want to be a woman? It's not that I want to be a woman. I've been living as a woman for the last 6 years, you know? And nothing I've read in the scientific literature convinces me that I'm anything otherwise. As far as what makes me so adamant that I want to be out as trans, it's just the fact that I feel so much better being out as trans than I did not being out as trans. Does that make sense? Excuse me. Being trans isn't a bad thing. Y'all know that, right? They don't. Trust me, they don't. Feelings do not override facts, which is why I'm so lucky that the overwhelming scientific consensus in regards to trans people is that transgender people are real and valid. Fucking ma'am, I need to know how you think. Should we keep the oil we seized from Venezuela? No. 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 We should never have gone to Venezuela, so no, we should not be repackaging and selling off illicit war spoils. 100%. Anti-ICE equals anti-democracy. We voted for this? No. A third of the country voted for this. Another third of the country voted against it, and a third of the country stayed the fuck home because both candidates were evil, horrible pieces of shit that nobody liked. So if by the people you mean the very small percentage of voters you guys have managed to con into your long game scheme, then sure, bud. Who got the most votes again? The Republicans. You know what group was the biggest potential, though? You know what group actually had the most people? It wasn't Republicans, Democrats, Independents, or Libertarians. It was non-voters. Eligible non-voters were by far the largest group. Non-participants were the largest group of potential electoral participants. Is that not, like, do you guys just not care about that? I guess you guys don't. Like, Republicans rely on that fact. I'm beating a dead horse here because Republicans rely on the fact that most people in this country don't fucking vote. Not that most people in this country don't vote, but that most people in this country are not very well informed about their vote, and there's about a third of people that just don't go to the ballot box at all. Sometimes it's a little less, sometimes a little more, but around a third. Being anti-democracy is good. I think it depends. I think that there are arguments to be made for forms of democracy. I don't think America does it perfectly, but there's I can't think of the dude's name, but he's in a Michael Moore documentary, and I believe it's Fahrenheit 11/9. I think it's Fahrenheit 11/9. Anyway, but this one guy, I think he's like a Harvard law professor or something. He's talking about how democracy is not an institution. It's not some framework that you implement and there you go, you have it. It's a practice. It's it's a goal to be striven towards. It's an art of getting there kind of thing. And we don't really look at it that way. Like we kind of think about, and we're propagandized to look at America as a fully functional democracy, right? We are literally trained by our government, by our school systems, by everyone to look at America as some kind of perfect, if a little flawed democracy. When the reality of it is, we really haven't ever been a democracy effectively. We didn't start off as a democracy, certainly. When America was founded, the only people who could vote were white landowning males. Yeah, literally, white landowning males. White servants couldn't vote. Black people couldn't vote. Native Americans couldn't vote. Women couldn't vote. 4 entire groups of people. So half the population right off the bat can't vote by default. And then you take about a third of the population, or sometimes as much as 2/3 of the population, when you're discounting the votes of black people in a given district, right? And then you take off white servants, and you're left with an electorate that consists of about 10% of the population. That's not a democracy. A democracy is not where 10% of the population votes for what happens. And that's not my vision of democracy, certainly. Indian tribes did not want to vote. Indian tribes were not given the opportunity to vote. They were explicitly outlawed from voting. They were explicitly excluded from the ability to vote. I'm reading the People's History of the United States right now, and it is fucking wild how much systemic oppression we engaged in against the Native Americans. They should have been and should be sovereign. Well, they're supposed to be sovereign. The Native American tribes are supposed to be sovereign under the treaties and agreements that we've signed with them. We just don't really practice that sovereignty with them. We don't allow them the full degree of that. America is feudalism disguised as theocracy, disguised as a democracy. By the way, feudalism is spelled FEUDALISM. So just so you know. But America is literally, it's feudalism disguised as technocracy, in my opinion. Like it's feudalism disguised as democracy, but it's really like also a technocracy. It's kind of hard to describe, but ultimately what has happened is that we have created a series of weird little feudal lords with giant castles in the form of giant stock holdings and things like that. Because the new big currency is not land, it's not titles, it's nothing like that. It's money. It's been money for a long time. And we've got massive, massive fucking billionaires at this point that control just profound chunks of the marketplace, profound chunks of industry. and are effectively able to like set the tone and timber for how America's business atmosphere is going to function, and therefore how the consumer experience is going to work. I wish America was an autocracy. Am I right, boys? Man, weak troll, real weak. It's called corporatism. Yeah, that's definitely one of the things that's going on for sure. That might be the most apt description of it, really. Truth is, in the world of tisms, there's a lot of them that apply. Bro is a bum then and now, a wannabe woman bum. Man, what a bitter fucking comment. You really need to consider like what kind of relationships you have with the other people in your life that are making you feel like such bitterness is acceptable. Just letting you know, we need communism. Yes, we literally need communism. I'm not even a fucking communist. We don't need like Marxian envisioned communism because that wouldn't even work now. We don't have an industrial economy anymore. We have a service economy. But we do need we need hardcore socialist policies, and we need them right now. Here's my 5 basic policies to fix America. Number 1, universal health care. We need it yesterday. We need it now. We need it immediately. Universal health care. Okay. Number 2, a universal food stipend. No more food stamps. Okay. No more income brackets or fucking you get less and you get more. You got 5 kids, so you get $700. None of that, you know? No. It is needs-based, appropriated according to your need and the fucking cost of living in your area, and it's universal. Universal. You can opt out and get a tax benefit for it, but it's universal unless you opt out. Everybody gets it. It's based on the cost of living for the fucking zip code that you live in, and it is recalculated every year to make sure that you have enough to buy your food without having to fucking touch your income, your other income, your fucking work income. Okay? Number 3, housing reform. This one's a little harder to talk about because it consists of more policies, but ultimately, we need rent freezes in a ton of places, not just New York City. We need a big fucking emphasis on building more apartments, townhouses, and honestly, we do need more simple, easy, cheap, single-family homes. There has been a movement in this country to decide that everybody needs to live in a McMansion. And the reason for this is because we've decided to allow real estate to be a commodity in this country. But most people don't want to live in a mansion. Most people don't want to keep that much shit up, you know? Like most people, like I personally, I do not want to live in a mansion. Personally, I want to live in a tiny house. Most people want more than that, but America doesn't build houses like that anymore. America used to build mansions, sure, but they also built smaller style homes and then pretty small homes, you know, like reasonable, like ranch style homes with a basement or a simple 2-story house or something. Very simple stuff, could be reintroduced very easily. So that's policy number 3, right? By the way, Black Lark, I did see your super chat. Thank you for the $10. I will read that in just 1 second. But 4th policy is public transit, right? We need mass transit in this country, and we need it now. And this is going to have to come with a massive reinvestment in infrastructure, new bridges, new roads, new highways in places, new repaving and shit, new highways declared maybe. And we're going to obviously need to build a high-speed rail system. That's going to be a big thing too, right? Okay. But that's going to be a massive public works project that is going to hire millions of people, put millions of people to work, and make America a more functional place. You want to make America great again? One of the best and easiest ways you could do it is by introducing high-speed rail to this country so that tourists from fucking Alabama to Minnesota to fucking California can get all the way across the country anytime they want for relatively cheap, okay? So that's a huge thing that we need to do. And then the 5th policy would be universal higher education, taxpayer-funded higher education, so that people are able to seek the jobs of the future, the jobs that we're actually going to have once AI starts taking over all of these things that it's not going to be able to do for itself, right? Like AI is still going to need people who can physically upgrade the servers. It's still going to need programmers. They're still going to need, and obviously there's a lot of positions that are not ever going to go away completely, because there's always going to be human corporations that ultimately want to be at the behest of it all, and they're going to want to have specific workers that are controlled. Like there's always going to be some kind of small semblance of industry, even with the rise of AI. People are going to need to be able to do those jobs. They're going to have an even greater fucking basis of education than they do now. So universal higher education and universal trade school, because there's tons of these trades, tons of jobs in the trades that will not go away with AI, that are going to stick along. They're going to be with us for a long fucking time. Jobs like HVAC are not going away because of AI. Jobs like plumbing, not going away because of AI, not anytime soon. Will there come a day when a company can theoretically send an android into your house and get a plumbing problem fixed for you? Probably, but that day isn't coming anytime soon. I hope your night is going well. Thanks for the good streams, Phoebe. Well, of course, Black Lark, I appreciate the $10. You, as always, I appreciate that so much. By the way, if you would like to have your comment or question read or answered, consider sending a super chat or donating to my Cash App, which you can find in the description below. Either way helps immensely. I can use Cash Apps instantly, so that's good. But thank you for that. Could you expand on high-speed rail, especially in rural communities? So, I don't think high-speed rail is the only solution. I think you also need, that's why I said mass transit, right? That's why I started off by saying we need mass transit, high-speed rail, and an emphasis on rebuilding our infrastructure, because one of the things that I think we're going to need to have is commuter rail, which is not high-speed rail, but it's rail that can operate at normal speeds or slightly higher than normal to get people to and fro from a small town, right, into a bigger city center. So that's what I would picture probably happening. Maybe for some rural communities, a bus line would make more sense, like a bus from the biggest major community nearby comes by at like 8 a.m. or whatever, and then it comes back by at 8 p.m. or something. Maybe it's got 4 stops throughout the day or whatever. There are ways that we could incorporate this, and it's going to change from locality to locality, whether the most apt solution is to, rebuild an old rail line to put light rail in or put commuter rail in, or whether the ideal option is to have a bus line go out there. That's going to depend on the municipality you're talking about, land rights, trackage rights, right-of-way, things like that, individual solutions may vary, but high-speed rail ultimately would connect the nation's largest cities. So, most of the nation's largest cities are located on the same corridors anyway. If you actually start looking at a map of the United States, pretty much all of America's cities are interconnected. Pretty much all of them. And I would just advocate that we build the high-speed rail systems on top of the existing interstate highways, either in the median where we can, buried underground where we cannot. There are a number of ways that we could take advantage of existent right-of-way that the country already owns and use that for high-speed rail in addition to road transport. Now, I'm not saying every fucking interstate highway would make a perfect candidate for high-speed rail placement. Obviously, there are some routes where the highway and its placement predates a better understanding about geography or technology that allows us to plan a shorter route or something. I get that. But in general, I think it's a good starting place to build some pilot programs at the very least. We need better services for our veterans and their spouses. I can't work because I can't be on my feet for more than 3 hours at a time. It takes me 2 days to recover. My husband is a veteran. Yeah, I 100% agree. We need better support for veterans and their families. A lot of the solutions that I call out are universal solutions that would help everybody, because I think that is the best way to get your ideas sold and ultimately to get them passed, is if you can show how it's just going to make society better. But I think that one of the things that would naturally start to happen after you implemented some of these changes is that you would start to see more support being offered up to veterans. You would start to see more support being offered up to widows and stuff like that. You would start to see more support being offered up to foster children. You would start to see more support being offered up to marginalized people of all kinds. You are going to see a commensurate increase with the amount of social support and resources that these different groups of people have access to, associated with the rise of people getting people increase their wealth, people get less tense, people get less anxious, people start to feel a little bit a little bit cooler and fast and fancy free with their time and money, and they're like, okay, cool, I can start to spend my energy in other ways. By the way, if you are a fan of the channel and you want to follow me on social media, please check out the links in the description. I have restarted my Instagram and my Twitter account. I have started posting on them again, and you can now go find those accounts. Please follow me over there. It would really help me a ton. Thank you. Those are in the thank you for the gift, but those are great. Any race can make it America through hard work. In fact, some of the best programs are exclusive to minorities. The white shaming is just a scapegoat to excuse lazy people. I don't think I was doing any white shaming. I also don't think that we need to discount the reality that racism is still present in this country. It is harder for a black person than it is for a white person. Still, to this day. Maybe not everywhere, maybe not universally, but overall, right? But I'm not even the kind of person that thinks we need to start off with programs to address that, okay? I'm the kind of person who wants to do universal programs. I don't want to do something that just affects the black community, okay? I don't want to do something that just affects the white community, okay? I want to do universal solutions that are going to fucking help us all, because a rising tide raises all ships. I disagree with Margaret Thatcher on perhaps everything she ever said, except for that. Your bangs are so badly cut, you look like you have a bowl on your head. Yeah, I've heard. Where is this money coming from? We would just have to pay more money on it for any of this to be built. How about we start taxing the wealthy? How about we start taxing the wealthy? How about we start ending some of the massive subsidies to the military-industrial complex? How about we start demanding some fucking results out of these military contracts? Seems to me like we got plenty of money in this country for bombing Venezuela, bombing Iran, helping Ukraine, helping Israel. Why is it that we fund the fuck out of Israel and they can have universal health care, but not us? Why is it that Israel can afford to endlessly bomb their neighbors and their own countrymen, but we can't even afford a fucking doctor? Do you realize how silly that sounds? Do you realize how stupid any of this sounds? We have the money. We're just not taxing it. Like every other country on the planet does, by the way. So this idea that the billionaires are just going to flee, I thought you guys have told us for years that the only reason the billionaires are here is because of our low tax rates. But if that's true, then why don't the billionaires go to some other countries where the tax rates are also even lower? Oh, right, because the billionaires that are in America are here because they want to be in America. They're not here because it's convenient. They're here because, like, dude, for a billionaire, convenience is not a thing. Everything is convenient for you. Jeff Bezos could move to Germany right now if he wanted to. You know why he doesn't? Because he likes living in Bellevue. He likes living in fucking Seattle. He likes living in Washington or whatever the fuck, wherever he lives. I don't know where the fucker lives. He likes living in rich-ass fucking cities on the West Coast. He does not like the idea of moving to some European country, clearly and obviously, because he could receive rich fucking tax benefits from doing it. You realize, like, there are places like Ireland that basically treat billionaires like royalty because they tax them so much. Like, they don't even tax them that much more than we do, or they tax us about the same as we do, but they just don't spend infinite oodles of money on defense, and so they're actually able to pay for social programs and to woo billionaires that do want to move to Europe over to move into Ireland because their tax situation's so good. But yet, the Irish still have universal health care. They tax the fucking rich, not a lot, just enough to pay for their fucking health care. It is fucking wild to me what you can do when you decide to spend money on your people instead of war. You don't even need to tax them that much. You just need to, A, actually tax them, and B, you need to spend the money right. You can't be sending off oodles of money to, the fucking, to the, what were they called? Nicaraguan fucking rebel group. The Contras. Yeah. You can't be sending billions of dollars to Contras, okay? You can't be spending billions of dollars on bombing Venezuela, all right? You can't be spending millions of dollars on a bombing run on Iran. Yeah, you can't do those things if you want to take care of your people and lead your country like a good leader. Yeah, you can't do that. That is true. Rip your geek bar? This is an SBX bar, I'll have you know. Can we jump on a call to talk about some of these things? Do I want to do a call in? Oh, I would have to do so much to have a call in. I'd have to do so much. I'd have to go inside. No, I don't think we can. Yes, Mr. Popular, please. Ireland has a 40% income tax. Well, it's probably some other country I'm thinking about then. What is your opinion on trans children? That they should receive medical care appropriate for their situation as determined by their doctor. Why aren't you reading any of the funny comments? Who's to say what's funny? If the U.S. doesn't take control of the Venezuelan region, China was 100% bound to gain control. I don't give a fuck. Just because China was bound to control it doesn't give us a right to control it. We do business with China. We do business with China all the goddamn time. This idea that we are in fierce, stark competition with China is a pretty new idea and one that I think needs to go away. Call me Kissinger, but I don't think that we need to be in constant warring conflict with the entire rest of the planet. China wants to destroy America. Are you genuinely stupid? Are you? Real talk, are you? You think America wants to destroy... You think China wants to destroy America? What is that based on? What is that even based on? They literally do business with our corporations. They do business with our president loves them. Our president talks so positively about Xi Jinping. At least he used to. I don't know if he still does. I actually haven't heard him talk about Xi in a while. We sold ourselves out to China for short-term profits? Well, not according to these fucks. According to these fucks, you know, we don't have any kind of relationship with China, I guess. No, I mean, I agree. I do think we sold ourselves out to China, but that's why I don't think China wants to destroy us. We're fucking good consumers. We're like, our economics... Dude, this just reveals the mind of a conservative, right? This is we are peering right now into the mind of a far-right person. In the mind of a far-right person, the only motivation with which one approaches world politics is domination and colonialism, right? In the mind of a far-right fascist, that is the only lens through which foreign policy can be conducted. And they refuse to believe the idea that any other country might look at it through some other lens. China doesn't give a fuck to colonize America. China doesn't want to destroy or destabilize America's government. China wants the United States to continue being a profitable trade partner with whom they can make fucking loads of money off of selling us cheap garbage. Cheap consumer garbage. Consumerism doesn't matter when they constantly see us as a threat. Well, I wonder why they would see us as a threat. They did an $80 billion deal with a foreign country, and then we came and seized that country's leader and said that we're just going to take all the oil. So the $80 billion deal that they signed, upon which, like it was literally like the collateral on that loan was the oil fields. So I wonder, wonder why they might see us as a threat. If they see us as a threat, they're fucking right, according to the rhetoric I'm seeing here in chat. By the way, one last call. If you guys want to fucking follow my social media, it really will help, because it'll help me, reawaken those platforms and get started over there and everything. Please go follow my Twitter. Go follow my fucking socials. They are linked down below. Well, they're not linked, but they're, they're there. They're there. The handles are there. The handles are down there. Also, consider donating if you want to support the channel. Children don't know about stuff like trans stuff. I mean, they can if you teach them about it. Like, there's nothing inherently sexual about trans people. Like, all of the preconceptions that transness has to do with are they're psychosocial. So what's the difference between a tomboy, which was a popular thing growing up, and a girl who wants to be trans now? So I would say that, they're still tomboys. There are girls who like the aesthetics of mixing masculine and women's clothing. There are women who don't feel as hardcore feminine as some others. And then there are some women who actively resent, well, obviously they wouldn't be women. There are some people who actively resent the idea that they are women and don't want to live as a woman, and so they transition to manhood. And these are like distinct concepts. It's not like one became the other, like yeah, there are probably tomboys that did eventually come out as trans, yeah, but there are also plenty of tomboys who were just like, regular cis girls that just prefer like more masculine clothing and stuff, just like there are cis guys who prefer more feminine clothing and shit. Like literally look at that video of the homophobe / transphobic people making fun of that gay cisgender guy in a men's bathroom. Literally a cisgender gay man, super effeminate and everything, but whatever, like confident in his being a man, like he wasn't even like he was openly saying like, no, I'm not trans, like just like a very feminine gay guy that is comfortable in his cisgender man identity, like that exists. I know, crazy to think, cisgender people, they exist. News at 11. Just because I'm not one doesn't mean I don't know that you guys are out there, No, there is no such thing as a biological gender. There's such a thing as biological sex, but sex and gender are two different things. So what was your question, Mr. Popular? Your very serious question? Could Trump be the pirate king? Sure. Sure, bud. Why not? Are you happy Trump is stopping drugs from Venezuela from entering the U.S.? Well, the vast majority of drugs that come out of Venezuela don't even go to the U.S., so I just feel like it's a false pretense, Like, it's been known for a long time. Number one, the main drug that comes out of Venezuela is not fentanyl, which is what the president keeps citing. It is, in fact, cocaine. And most of it is not bound for American shores. It's actually bound for European shores and other international markets. Ironically, the main supplier of fentanyl to the United States is China in the form of precursor chemicals. If they're worried about drugs, they should go after the CIA. Yeah, that's fucking true, too. First, ship them dope, let them date their brothers. Next step, step back, let them kill each other. Next step, give them guns, step. Next step, give them guns, step back, let them kill each other. There we go. We find ourselves in a predicament where political extremism has become the de facto thing for both parties. It's easy to be manipulated by online figures who stoke the flames and face no consequences. Well, I don't know if you're talking about me or talking about other people, but is that Ja Rule? No, that was Tupac. Do you believe guns should be banned? Hell no. I don't even believe in magazine restrictions. I don't even believe in magazine and type restrictions. I think you should be able to have an M1 Abrams in your yard. Now, granted, I also think you should be prosecuted if you use that M1 Abrams to destroy your neighbor's property or something like that, and I think that it should probably be taken away from you at that point, but, I err on the side of liberty, personally. Girls don't rap like that, bro? Okay. Can you explain your exact political viewpoint? Sure. I'm a market socialist in the near term, which means I think that most things can probably be dealt with the free market. Well, not the completely free market. No country has a completely free market, but I think that the market can deal with most things. But when it comes to human needs, things that we absolutely will die without, I think that those things should not be left up to the whims of a ever-shifting marketplace that is driven entirely by human greed. I think that it is important that we protect these things, that we make sure that we provide them to people on a baseline, and that we prevent them from being, you know, we prevent them from being away from people. In the long term, I think that human beings will eventually, after a long enough time living under socialist and communist-esque systems, which I do think we will either be forced into them or we will evolve into them over the next 100 years. We'll see what happens. But whether or not we evolve or are forced into those positions, I think that eventually that will do a further evolution into some kind of anarcho-syndicalist kind of position or framework where we have worker syndicates getting together to form larger confederacies or organizations, cliques, I don't know what you'd call them, and those would cooperate on a national and international level for the collective betterment of humankind in a world where we have progressed past the need for leaders and state force in order to accomplish our goals, in order to realize our goals. I think eventually we'll make it there. I don't think you can flip the switch on that system. I don't think there's any way you could come up with a policy proposal that would enact that society right now. I think that that's something you build towards. It's something that you build towards. You take over more of the technology. You eventually take power back from the bourgeoisie, and when power is firmly in the hands of the working class, then you can start to build up your organizational power. You can start to organize as a unit and start to maybe bring some real changes, some real structural changes to the way everything works. And after that point, 200 years of, or not even 200 years, really, it might not even take that long, but 100 years of living in a society that is increasingly more socialist in nature would eventually make people realize, why do we need politicians? Ultimately, why do we really need someone whose job it is? We need someone whose job it is to make sure, this is what happens in this. We need legislators, but do we need politicians? We need regulators, but do we need politicians? We don't. The idea of a politician is this idea of a person who is highly immune to the legal process, privileged above their fellow citizens, more informed than their fellow citizens by virtue of their proximity to power, and protected to a degree that normal citizens are never afforded. This is an idea that we could most certainly do without. People don't tweak on weed. That is a phrase used to describe meth addiction, actually. Sorry to tell you. It's a Hassan follower. Make a lot of sense. Damn. I guess I'm a Hassan follower now. I don't even think that I'm really that into Hassan. I think I'm subscribed to his channel, Definitely watch some clips every now and again. But I've actually been on way more of a Vosh kick lately. My normal YouTubers, though, are Paul Zigo and TJ Kirk. That's my mainstays. If you want to know who I'm not a Hassan offspring. I'm not a Vosh offspring. I'm a TJ Kirk offspring, okay? If you're looking to see, which YouTuber birthed me out of their vagina, it's not Hassan. It's TJ. Who's your favorite rapper? Tupac. Asmongold is based. Yeah, Roach Boy is totally based. I agree, man. You definitely like the Humanist Report. He comes out of Portland. I've heard of him, yeah. I've heard of the Humanist Report. I definitely would like their content, I'm sure. I do watch some Kyle Kulinski, too. Like, Kyle is where I go if I want, like, honestly, like, Kyle is kind of a... Kyle and Vosh are both deep divers, really. But I feel like Kyle is really good at presenting things in a quick and informative way, in a very snappy kind of way. Whereas most Vosh videos are going to be more of a deep dive and commentary on things. So I feel like if I just want to get like the quick, like the notes on what's happening with a general news story, Kyle's a good source to look at. Yes, Pink Fur, hit me with it. Good pick, not gonna lie. What's your favorite song by him? Hit 'Em Up. First off, fuck you, bitch, and the click you claim. West Side when we ride, come equipped with game. You claim to be a player, but I fucked your wife. West Side when we ride was fucked for life. I don't think Asmongold has opinions. He just says whatever he thinks people will like at any given time. Yeah, he's a fake populist. He's adopted listen, MAGA is very desperate, and MAGA also has an army of overseas bots that will prop them up wherever MAGA happens to pop up at. So if you're going to be a convenient mouthpiece for MAGA, they will support you, and they will be arduous in their support. They'll watch y'all fucking... Dude, I'm telling you, there are few people as media obsessed as the average MAGA. Tupac is overrated, slay me. That's just a fucking baseline trolling attempt. And I'm not even going to try to address it. You're just flatly wrong. Asmongold is an IRL version of that thing from Lord of the Rings. Are you talking about Gollum? That's funny. That's good. What about all the accounts for the left on Twitter from the Middle East and Africa? You mean all the accounts from the right? Because when I read that news story, it was mostly accounts on the right, friend. Whole bunch of MAGA accounts. What do you think about Vosh's interest in Lolly Horse Prawn? I don't exactly watch, I don't exactly watch Vosh because I like him. Let me put it that way. In fact, I'm kind of on an anti-Vosh arc right now because he seems to think that there's no greater agenda going on with the Trump administration other than trigger the libs and be evil. And that's just flatly stupid. I mean, he's kind of elaborated that it's other things at sometimes, but like, it seems like he'll get into this mode where he's just like, oh, it's just evil. It's like, no. You need to be telling people what this is, and it is not just pure evil. It is a fucking doctrine of domination and manifest destiny that has dominated the American administration for probably 150 years if we want to trace it back to its earlier to its earliest identifiably modern fucking components, but at the very least has been spurred on and hugely increased in scope by the Straussian neoconservative movement. We need to force every politician to listen to Midwest emo. It'll fix everything. You know what? You might be right. You might just be right. You might have an idea there. By the way, if anybody wants to support the channel, or if you want to make sure your comment or question gets read or answered, consider sending a super chat. I haven't pumped them a lot this stream, but they are really useful. They are the main way that this channel is supported, so consider doing that. You can also donate through my Cash App, which is in the channel description, it's in the description down below on this stream, actually. Use the word evil. What defines evil? I don't think evil has an objective universal definition. When I use evil, I'm using it for shorthand for minimizing human good, Like I use it for shorthand for for that which does not maximize human good. Or really, I use it for shorthand for that which minimizes human good. That which does bad things for us, right? Because you can quantify human happiness. You can quantify human happiness, and you can correlate certain policies with greater degrees of happiness. Therefore, you can, with relative scientific accuracy, come up with a like literally, this is how a society should be run according to objective science if you value human happiness. And I do. I value the good of humanity. I quantify the good of humanity as the most happiness for the most people. The Straussian neoconservative movement. Okay, Jordan Peterson. I don't know. I've never heard Jordan Peterson talk about Leo Strauss, but if he has, good on him. And never mind. He's probably talked about Strauss from a positive direction, man. He's probably, if he has brought up Strauss, it's probably been in a good way. He's probably been like, "Oh, Leo Strauss was a great man, a great progenitor of the conservative movement from early on in its earliest days, the 1930s, the harsh, war-torn 1930s." What's your opinion this year's coming cinema and video games? I don't know what's coming out yet. Really, legitimately, I don't know. I think GTA 6 is slated to come out later this year. I don't know. I guess I'll check up on what their union practices have been since the last time I read about it. If they're still fucking over their union workers, then I'm probably not going to get the game. Well, Avengers Doomsday and the Wolverine video game are coming out later this year. Oh, well, I can tell you this much. I'm not looking forward to Avengers. Seen enough dudes in suits and tights. Let me see here. What do you think about Donald Trump's statement on prohibiting large investment institutions like BlackRock and Vanguard from buying single-family homes? No, just the Cisco-Pedalian lexicon you chose. Who the fuck knows what Straussian neoconservative is? Well, I've been accused of this a number of times, and my answer to you, Winston, is that I have adopted the language of the bourgeoisie in order to better conceal my true class, my true class relationship. There you go. Well-educated rich people know what I'm talking about, and that's really the only people I need to know who's, I'm kidding, by the way. I'm joking. I'm joking, okay? No, I don't know. I didn't, consciously choose to have, as you put it, a Cisco-Pedalian lexicon. I just kind of, I think, naturally evolved into one. When I don't know. I just how am else I always get I get into the same problem every time that I think about this, because what else am I supposed to say, other than, well, I guess that's just the way it is, some things will never change, because ultimately, if I want to talk about the influence that Leo Strauss had over modern Republican and the MAGA movement and everything, if I want to talk about that, I'm going to have to use terms like neoconservative Straussian. Now, maybe I should go ahead and explain what that is, So the Straussians were a group of scholars that all learned or were taught the theories of a man named Leo Strauss, who, did not give a lot of interviews. He refused to be interviewed. He refused to be recorded for the radio or anything like that. But he had a very loyal band of students that he taught a number of theories in regards to governance and philosophy and all these other things. And his most impactful teaching probably was the idea that the elites, his students, were to maintain two myths: that it was not important that they themselves believe. These were noble lies that they would spread to the masses for the unity of society, but that they would not need to believe themselves, and therefore would not believe themselves. And these ideas were the myth of God, of course, and the myth of the nation. The myth of the nation changes depending on what nation you're in, but the myth of the nation that was already beginning to be established in America was the idea of us as a righteous and good nation that is going to protect the world from evil and set about bringing the mission of democracy abroad. Now, of course, this idea, if you believe that this is important for keeping society together, that it is important for people to believe that America has to invade countries in order to keep the society together, then you are going to make whatever excuse you can for invading other countries, and you are going to have a ready-made philosophical excuse for any time you want to engage in a war of profit as well. It was a philosophical movement that was, if not designed, then ultimately ended up in a massive cover-up of people's real political intentions by way of rhetoric. You see, the things going on in Venezuela right now are neoconservative in nature, but they're not being defended the way a neoconservative would, which is why they're not being called out as such. That's why people aren't identifying it as part of the same tendency, but it is ultimately a reawakening of that tendency, and it's using a lot of the same rhetoric, just repackaged and more vile than, or as was used before. The idea that Venezuela is a threat to world security because they're being helped by all these hostile powers. The idea that they're a threat to national security because of the same reason, that they're sending drugs and all this other stuff. I mean, before it was terrorism, now it's drugs, Before it was Islamic terrorism, now it's narco-terrorism. Let me scroll up, see that message that Winston... Leo Strauss, I much prefer his jeans to his brothers. Yeah. Leo Strauss, he made some good jeans. That Levi, though. I didn't even come to the stream. I've subscribed only to screw around and say something silly. Well, you're here. I don't think that's unique to neocons, TBH. It's not unique anymore. But it was 100% a unique idea to them when they fucking came up with it. Protectionism and isolationism was the American tendency before the neoconservatives arrived on the scene. I mean, we were starting to get out of that, we were starting to branch out, but ultimately it was missteps like going into Korea that allowed it was both Vietnam and Korea that allowed the modern neoconservative tendency towards invasion to take off. Had those two wars not happened, had those two acts of aggression not happened, then we wouldn't be dealing with this. We just flatly wouldn't be. But World War II was the last time we actually formally declared war. We never formally declared war on Korea. We never formally declared war on Vietnam. Crazy to think about. Genghis Khan, British Empire. The British Empire did not want to conquer the entire world because they thought they need to. The British Empire did not conquer the entire world because they thought they had to in order to protect themselves from invasion. Nor did they do it because they, nor did they do it out of some populist uprising that had been instilled by the people. It was like baseline. It was like baseline. We want profit. We want to expand our fucking colonial empire and everything. And the fascists were way more honest back then. The reason why neoconservatism is special, if it is at all, is because it provides the fascist, the capitalist, the invader with a really nice philosophical framework that redresses their colonialism as bringing democracy and freedom. It slants the narrative so that you're no longer talking about an invasion, you're talking about liberation. I do really want to hear what you think about Trump's statement on prohibiting large investment institutions. Oh, yeah, okay. I was going to answer that. Yeah, so I don't, like, I think good that we're going to prohibit them from buying up more of them, but if you actually look into it, less than 1% of all U.S. homes are owned by those institutions. Most U.S. homes are owned by fucking, like, you know, like private corporations that aren't like big investment firms like that, or they're owned by individual landlords, or they're owned by homeowners. But yeah, I do think that large investment firms should be blocked from buying houses. I've got no problem with it. I just feel like it's being oversold in terms of its effect, you know? I've got no problem with it in principle, though. But maybe it's good. Maybe it's good that he's stepping in on it before it becomes a problem, you know? And maybe it'll reduce the price of houses. Hell, I don't think it will, but maybe. Ain't nobody here want to hear these big ass words of yours. See, Winston, that's basically what you were saying, but in not so many words. So we need to let the inmates run the asylum? Huh? Yes. If you're talking about letting the workers control the workplace, yes. Yeah. As it turns out, I actually think you probably know more about the place you work than your CEO does. Like, functionally. As far as, like, the day-to-day operations go, yeah. No bosses, no gods, no masters. No bosses, no gods, no masters. No bosses, no gods, no masters. I'm an anarchist. I could imagine the way people look at immigrants now isn't too different from how colonial settlers looked at natives. It's different in language, certainly. It's different in the stereotypes associated, but it's not different in terms of the cruelty exacted. That's what I'll tell you. I've gotten to, like, I don't even know. I'm like 2 or 3 or 4 hours in. I'm listening to an audiobook of A People's History by Howard Zinn. And the first, like, 2 or 3 hours of it is all about the interactions between early white colonial settlers and the Native American tribes. And the way that Columbus talked about the Arawak Indians, for example, was pretty atrocious. But I wouldn't say it's any more or less atrocious than the way people in the modern day talk about immigrants. I thought you're a communist? Yeah? What does that have to do with anything? I mean, I'm an anarchist, you know? Like, I feel like, you know, we don't really need to split hairs there. What about the improvement in the quality of life that rose from colonialism in colonial Africa? There wasn't really much of an improvement of quality of life. I mean, there was a change in the way life worked for people, but the fact that we look at it as an increase in the quality of life is more of an artifact of the way that we judge societies and less an objective measure of the truth. Africa had perfectly functional societies all throughout it before colonialism. They just weren't rolling around with cannons. They weren't rolling around with cannons. They weren't building castles. They weren't trying to fucking build these big giant cities the way Europeans were. You know, like, they weren't trying to build big sailing ships or whatever. But there were all kinds of African tribes that were actually traded with and well respected, and African kingdoms and shit that were traded with and well respected for a long time before they were either colonized or taken over by some other monarchical power or whatever. Um, so I wouldn't say that there was necessarily an increase in the actual meaningful quality of life. I think in the long term, there was actually a decrease in the overall quality of life for people on the African continent because of colonialism, because those failed colonial attempts were not only resisted, but they ended up putting people into this position of, we now demand things out of the Africans and expect things out of the continent of Africa that aren't really that feasible given the way we've kind of like treated them. And we don't ever want to take any kind of acknowledgement for that. Nor does anyone want to say, okay, well, let's look for some different way here. The big industrial powers in the world, for the most part, are not happy with an Africa left alone because there's too many resources in Africa to just leave them alone completely. Too much farming potential, too much agriculture potential, too many mines, too many diamonds, too many gold. The improvements don't outweigh the harms, and continued harms in colonial Africa. They could have just helped. Yeah, they could have just helped without subjugating the African people. They could have simply traded and behaved normally with African tribes. Like, they did not, like, you know, I don't know what specific aspect of colonialism we're talking about, but if we're talking about the slave trade, for example, like, nobody put a gun to these people's head and made them engage in the slave trade. If Europeans just came to Africa to build bridges and trade things, would have been cool, but they had to go and play kingmaker, pitting tribes against each other for slaves and then to conquer. Exactly. Exactly. They didn't just want to get in there. It's like any other colonial project. It's not like the mission was just build a few forts, buy some land from the natives, set up a couple of cities, integrate, trade, find out what's good, see the mountains. Like, if that was all that fucking colonialism was, nobody would have a problem with it. If the only fucking intention behind colonialism was, hey, we want to build some roads here and maybe like we can buy like this little patch of land and put like a town here, if that's cool. And we'll get in like an agreement with you guys. You guys won't kill us and we won't hunt off all your game, and you guys won't burn these crops. And in return, if some big colonial power ever tries to set up here, you'll have us. I think that would have been taken as a much more agreeable thing. But unfortunately, that's not literally what any colonial power ever set out to do, as far as I know. The only place I guess you could argue where it kind of happened was in South America with the Spanish and the Portuguese sometimes. There was more reliance on, but even then it was subjugation. Even then it was complete subjugation. It's not like they came there and did anything different, functionally. The only difference is that they weren't bringing enslaved people to replace them. It sucks no matter how you look at it, ultimately. We try, I think, in the modern day to whitewash and wash away the previously committed crimes of our forebears, but I don't really know why, because none of the whitewashing we could ever do is going to erase that original sin of America's, and we have not ever tried to properly atone for it. Even the idea, there are literally like a third of Americans who will consider you a race traitor if you're a white person who will advocate for reparations or anything like that, which I generally do. I don't know that it would fix the problem, but I think on a long enough time scale, I would want my 5 policy agenda things done first, obviously. But I think once we address those, it would be pretty natural at some point for us to think, okay, well, we've addressed all these systemic things that keep us all down. Now let's address some of the things that have kept specific members of us down for longer than others. Hi, Post. The Africans enslaved and sold to people that they caught. Interesting theory there. Merely because a few African people decided to become slavers does not mean that the whole of Africa is responsible for its own slavery. That's a monstrous conclusion. A small few Europeans probably did come with okay intentions, but we have to keep in mind that relationship evolved over hundreds of years. Oh, yeah, dude. Well, like, literally, we know for a fact that some of them came with better intentions than others. I mean, if you look at the story of the British colonies in the Americas, for example, does not begin with murder, like, it takes a while to evolve to that point. Like, there was a brief point in time where the natives and the white settlers were kind of getting along, more or less, but like that fell apart pretty quickly. And obviously I'm not talking about Hispaniola or anything like that. I'm not talking about the fucking West Indies. I'm talking about the British colonial project in the northeast of what is now the United States. The 13 colonies and everything, like in the very beginnings of the very first colonies and shit in America, in that part of America, they weren't like at each other's throats from the word go. Whereas Columbus actually did take 2 prisoners on his very first visit to Hispaniola. Literally, pretty much his first act, after he allowed one of the natives to cut themselves by gripping the fucking handle of a sword, or by gripping a sword by the wrong end, and showed them how guns worked and everything. Basically, his first act was to kidnap a couple of them. And when he came back, his second act was to subjugate them all for gold that didn't exist. And in a very fucking short time, this tribe went from around 8 million people to around 500 people. Power structures are problematic, not Europeans. Tons of Europeans came here under indentured servitude and fleeing subjugation. Oh, yeah, for sure. I should have been more careful in my wording. We were talking about, like, European powers there more. Like, the European powers, like, the colonial structures. And that's why I say my wording was sloppy. And you're right, because, it's ultimately the frameworks and the power structures that are the problem. It's the systems, not the people. Like you said, millions of people came over here as indentured servants who were not really expected to live through the period of their servitude, and for whom, so it was not uncommon for an indentured servant to get more years tacked on to their indenture because of some crime they committed or something. And it was kind of like in your interest to keep your indentured servants in a way that would make them kind of like encourage some kind of criminality in some way so that you could perpetuate that indenture. And a lot of people have this idea about indentured servants. Oh, well, an indentured servant was somebody that you sell your life to them for like 7 years, but at the end of it, you got land and all that. Nope. That was not part of the original thing. That was not part of the original contract. The original way indentured servitude to America worked was a British peasant or commoner or poor person in general would sell themselves into servitude. They would sign an indenture and often be jailed, basically, held in confinement until the day of departure in order to make sure they didn't run away. And the only thing that their indenture paid for was their transport to the New World. They were responsible for making something of themselves once they got there, and after they got out of their master's employ. So, functionally not that different from slavery, other than the fact that it was, you know, it was something you had to like sign up for in the beginning. It's not like you got a choice with slavery. You didn't even get an initial choice with slavery. With indentured servitude, there was like, the option in theory. The quality of infrastructure and architecture in Rhodesia under Ian Smith was far greater than modern Zimbabwe, even with modern today's technology. Okay. I think there might be more to that story, but, without reading up on it more, I don't know. Is you BDK? Huh? What? Well, anyway. You guys are starting to bore me. Not all of you, obviously. But I don't, yeah, chat's dry as fuck. Normally I would hate it for somebody to comment on it, but, I understand that, but leaving out big parts of history doesn't help anyone. Every culture has enslaved people. We didn't live like, we don't, what? I didn't do it, I'm not paying for it? Okay, but you do realize that there are people to this day. It's not a matter of whether you did it or not. It's a matter of whether or not it's right to... Okay, let me put it this way. If you knew that a family member of yours, right, had murdered somebody in cold blood, and you had the opportunity to, would you try to help out their family in the aftermath? Or would you just be like, fuck them, my family killed them, so I must I'll hate them too? Aw. Are you serious, Post? You're gonna unsub? That's sad. But yeah, it's not a matter of like whether or not you pay, like it's not a matter of not, like, you didn't do it. Nobody's saying you did it, I would be willing to help, but it should not be expected of me. Okay, so you're willing to help, so why not support reparations then? Like, why not support it then? It's like, well, I'd be willing to help, but I don't want to be asked to help, huh? It just doesn't make any sense, man. It's like the kind of people who are like, free association, but then you say, okay, so why don't you agree to this tax idea then? And they're like, no, because that's coercion. It's like, just say you don't want to do it, man. Just tell me you don't want to do it. Because literally, taxes are the way we coordinate big things like this. And you literally cannot have a tax code that you can let people opt out of specific programs. Although I have heard one libertarian argue for that. I have argued with a libertarian who literally said that you should be able to opt out of any government program you want and not have to pay the taxes for that program. Which is just fucking hilarious to me. The government should enforce reparations. It should be left to the individual. If it's left to the individual, it's never going to happen. I don't think the government has to force it. I think that a democratic movement should rise up and insist that our government enact it. And I think that if the right arguments were made, I think that people would fucking get behind it. Think that because I'm white, I need to pay for it. I'm French Canadian and Native American ancestors had no part in it. If you're French Canadian, your ancestors almost certainly had a part in it. The French were huge in the slave trade. Your ancestors may have piloted a slave ship for all we know. One of your ancestors might have been a fucking laborer on a slave ship for all we know. French Canadian and Native American is right around the right time too. Unless when you say French Canadian and Native American, you mean like your mom's Native, your dad's French Canadian. Usually people are talking about a farther back lineage than that. And if it's like, your great grandparents or something that were the ones who intermingled it, then I got bad news for you. Do you want to do it? You want to send your money for something you didn't do? Yes. Like, I do think a percentage of my taxes should go towards some kind of reparation program for black people in America. Yes. Yeah. I think that would be a more appropriate expenditure. I think that would be a more appropriate expenditure of my tax dollars than would be an ever-increasing military budget that is used to finance the whims of crazy old men in the White House, like Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Just saying. I would certainly rather my money go to uplift some poor black family than to blow up some poor fucking Gazan family. Being a laborer on a slave ship in the 1700s wasn't much better than being an actual slave, and arguably worse in some instances. Maybe in some instances. I mean, a lot of slave ships were literally holding people like cattle. Like, there were some slave ships where you were literally just packed in there like fish. And I imagine on those, like, you can't get any worse than that. Like, you can't get any worse than being chained to the floor, packed in like sardines with other human beings in a hot-ass, stinky-ass ship, Ugh. Maybe in some situations, sure. Yeah, it was really hard for the poor slavers. We should give them reparations. Yeah, dude, let's do it, man. Those poor slavers. No, I get what Winston is saying. He's not talking about the captain or the traders that were on the ship. He's talking about the dude who fucking rigged the sails. He's talking about the dude who had to climb up on the fucking crow's nest and look out and, stood about as good a chance as at dying as getting down off his post every day. He's talking about that guy. And that guy did have a pretty horrible life. The captain was fine. The traders were fine. The cartographers were fine. The officers of the ship, they were doing good. The laborers, like the people who were actually like responsible for the care of the human beings and responsible for climbing up to the fucking crow's nest and doing all the, sailory shit, they probably did not have very good lives. Not lives so miserable that I would compare them to slaves personally, but I'm not Winston, They were holding people worse than cattle on slave ships. Millions died. I mean, that's what I was just talking about. Like, I didn't get to the millions died part, but yeah, there were hundreds of deaths. It was literally not uncommon for a slave ship to lose a third of its manifest. It was not uncommon for a slave ship to lose a third of its manifest on, the trip across the Atlantic. Just a third of the human beings on board that ship just dying of hunger, want, need, neglect. Miserable. Miserable conditions. We back? Were we gone for a second? People still work on oil rigs and lumber yards. They die a lot. Maybe that is also a problem? Well, yeah, of course it is. Well, you wouldn't think I don't think that's a problem, do you? Surely you know that I know that's a problem. I think all work should be made more safe. But I also think that it's if you're going to talk about history, I think it's important to consider the perspectives of the different people involved in the different class distinctions and levels therein. Because I think why does this descendant of a black slave deserve reparations when the descendant of a white laborer on a slave ship or laborer in a cotton mill or whatever does not? I think that that's an important conversation because you're helping to illustrate why it's important, right? Because you're giving them a comparative example that people will cite a lot. There are all kinds of white people in America who just hate the fucking baseline idea of reparations because in their mind, they did nothing to deserve that. They consider it some kind of punishment, and I agree that they're wrong for that. But fuck, what was I gonna say? God damn it. Oh, yeah. In order for people to understand why they should do something, they're going to need to hear some counterexamples. They're going to need to hear their arguments argued against. And I feel like it's a very common refrain of people to be like, oh, well, the Irish were slaves, or the Irish were indentured servants, or this, that, and the other. So we don't need to do reparations because all these people suffered too. And it's like, okay, all right. Well, I think that there's a different fucking approach that needs to be taken for each of these issues. Indentured servitude and the systems that came after it were the beginning of modern it was pretty much the beginning of the modern class relationship, at least in Western societies. I don't know, maybe someone will disagree with that. I figured you would have a reasonable take, Phoebe. What do I not have a reasonable take on? What is the reasonable take, in your opinion, Post? Should I not be for reparations because that's too specific a solution? Listen, I'm appealing to inevitability here, okay? It is an inevitable fact that a more liberal, more leftist America would have already done reparations, okay? Good, bad, right, or wrong. And I believe that in the leftist takeover that will come in the wake of this fascist-ass Trump shit, I think that reparations will be seriously discussed and maybe some kind of program will be undertaken, And I think that it's right for us to do that, but I understand that other people might not feel so good about it, and I'm willing to hear the argument. Your take was the reasonable take? Oh, okay, cool. Just making sure. Because I could understand you being anti-reparations, because you seem like you're a really hardcore leftist, at least it seems like it, and a lot of the arguments that you make are from a very class conscious and history conscious position, and I've definitely seen leftists make a principled argument against reparations from that standpoint, especially ones who see more universal solutions as being as having primacy. I think it should have been done years ago. It shouldn't be done now. Okay, well, you know what? We can build on this. We can build on this, Kat. Why do you think it should have been? Why do you think it's no longer a good idea to do it now? Setting aside the whole thing about I don't want to pay for it and all that, I bet you also, you know, you said you're Canadian, but I bet you also don't want to be subsidizing any of America's bullshit. I bet you also don't want to be paying for massive politician salaries. I bet there's plenty of things you already don't like paying for, right? But what if it had good outcomes? Like, do you not think it'll be like what is the reason besides I don't want to pay for it? Because baseline greed doesn't interest me. I'm sorry. Baseline self-interest bores me. What is that George Carlin quote? Baseline self-interest does not impress me. Yeah. I'm not averse to the idea of reparations. Okay, cool. Cool. Well, Cat is, and I'm interested to see why. Because I think that you can be against it from a number of reasons, but it's interesting to be for it in the past, but not for it now, you know? I'm of the opinion that if the conditions existed previously, it's likely they still exist today unless they've been redressed through some other course of action. As far as I know, that they haven't been. I will say, Kat, this is an interesting conversation we're having, isn't it? I don't know if Kat's going to respond. A shame. A shame, really. Should have been done then and not now means that Beyonce should get tax breaks and the affected parts of her community can bug off, I guess. I guess, yeah. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I really do want to know what's the distinction, you know? What is it like Beyonce exists so blacks don't need it anymore? Like, oh, we don't need to give black people reparations because Beyonce, you know? Like, she's around, you know? Look at never mind. Let me use a different black celebrity. I was about to cite Bill Cosby. Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman exists. He's plenty successful. Why do black people need reparations? Come on now. Look at Denzel Washington. You know, you got Tupac. What do you need reparations for? That's the vibe I'm getting, but I want Kat to prove us wrong. I want Kat to demonstrate that they have a more empathetic side to them than that. I'm working on it. Okay. Alrighty. You can break up the message into multiple messages if you have to, by the way. I like the idea of reparations. I'm just curious how it would work. Is there a certain number amount or what? That's what I wondered too, Micaiah. I used to work with a girl named Micaiah, actually, so that's kind of cool. So too, and I'm not some expert on slavery, expert on economics, so I am not the one who could tell you like a perfect policy proposal for what that would look like. I would have to talk to other people, and I would love to talk to other people about this exact idea, this idea. But I think it could take a number of forms. I think it could be a monetary amount, or maybe it would be probably the cheapest and most effective way would be to Now, I don't know. I would love to hear some input from other people, but I would imagine that granting, um, see, my mind goes to land, and I know that land is not a primary form of wealth anymore. Money is, but money can be squandered in a way that land can't. And it's not that I'm afraid of black people squandering money. Okay, I'm not trying to be racist. I'm afraid of poor people squandering money. Okay, there are plenty of people who are already middle class who would receive whatever money they would get in reparations and spend it really well. Plenty of people that would be in that position, but there's also a disproportionate amount of black people that are poor compared to other like racial groups in the U.S. So I fear that if it was just offered up as a monetary thing, then it might not be as effective, which is why my brain makes me think. It's why I think, like, what if land was the way that we did it? But that's not really a workable solution either, because there's lots of black people that don't live in a house. You know, they live in an apartment or in a duplex or something. So it's like, if you're just going to give them the land that they live on, that doesn't really work either. Maybe you just like do eminent domain on every historically black community and give it to the black people in that area. I don't know. I'm not a policymaker. 40 acres and a mule is the answer. Duh. I mean, I hate to sound like a fucking phrenologist from the 1850s, but isn't it? You know, 40 acres and a mule back then looks like 40 acres and a side-by-side now. Get you a mule brand one. You still got 40 acres and a mule. Look at that. No, I don't know. So Beyonce needs a tax break. Whoopi needs a tax break. Obama needs a tax break. Huh? Hold on, Kat. You said you were working on your answer. Okay, gotcha. Like maybe help build up their communities and infrastructure and stuff as well. That's a mold in the walls cough. You know what? This is an old outbuilding that I've only got a relatively recent familiarity with, so I'm not even going to say you're wrong, friend. Discount at KFC? God, I wish. Whoa, that was a racist thing. I thought they were saying I get a discount at KFC because I'm fat. But I just realized that that's a racist thing. See, this is how you guys know that, like, I might have a little bit of that Mississippi white racist in me, like I'm sure every Mississippian does to some degree, but I fight it, you know, and it's not the operative cogwheel in my head. And you can tell from moments like that where I just like autistically don't realize what I'm even reading out loud. In all honesty, probably like free vocational training for like 1,000 years. Yeah, honestly, that might not be a bad idea. Free vocational training for 1,000 years. But once again, wouldn't it be great if everybody could get free vocational training? You know, one of the other reasons why the reparations conversation is hard is because it's very easy for different groups to build up class resentment or what they perceive as class resentment and turn it into other kinds of resentment and just have it boil out of control. But I think in a case like this, you could find some kind of solution that allows black people to reach the heights of success, to access the same kinds of capital and access that pretty much everybody else in America can, without inciting that tension. I just don't know that I'm the policymaker to create it, you know? Because I'm not a policymaker. Best way would probably be a public service-based thing based on who owns more money and who doesn't have black heritage, like construction, land, and water mineral rights. Yeah, it would be kind of hard to fucking figure that out, though. I don't, like, what do you mean? Elaborate further. As long as people there spend money in the economy, it just, like, goes back into the economy. Yeah, reparations talk is hard because a lot of these ideas do feel like they should be universal. Yes, exactly. That's the problem I have with it too, is that I'll suggest an idea that I think would really help, um, like would really help stabilize the Black community and help them, like, make sure that they have the same access that everybody else does. Make sure that they're brought up to the same level, and that ancient original sin of America's is finally atoned for. I want that to happen. I just don't know what shape it should take, because every time I suggest a policy that would fall in line with that, I realize in pretty quickly, pretty short order, that it's a policy that would be better if it were universal. Let's go. I'm untimed out. Oh no. I will say I'm more in favor of wide-scale safety nets than reparations for specific demographics, but America has all the money. So that's kind of what I'm saying, Post, is like, I feel like wide-scale safety nets are a better solution overall, but I also think that I think that a lot of white people, regardless of what they say about it, feel pretty bad about slavery. Honestly, I don't know how you couldn't. I literally cry when I look at the picture of, oh, what is his name? Whipped John or something like that. I can't remember the name of the picture, but it's a picture of this slave with a scourged back, and it is just one of the most appalling photographs that has ever been taken. Literally, his back has been hit so many times by a cat o' nine tails that it is hard and ruddy with big pock marks, and like it looks like somebody set his back on fire or something. DNA tests from older families and a progressive land and sales tax based on income. DNA tests from older families and progressive land and sales tax. Hold on, let me see here. There are entire industries that have benefited from slavery, is the thing. That is true. That is very true. The agriculture industry was pretty much founded on slavery. It wasn't until industrial technology really took off that the South was even able to, like, figure out a new way to do things, you know? Actually, it's kind of interesting. Agriculture in the South really wasn't that profitable, like without slaves, like in the way that it was being done before. And so new types of agriculture had to evolve in the South, and that took a while to happen. Because before slavery was abolished, there was less like need, there was less like need to invest in technology, research technology and shit like that to try and alleviate the need for human labor. But obviously after slavery went away, there was this huge incentive to do it, and agriculture like basically became mechanized after that. But it took a while for the South to acclimate to that. We were very bitter over the loss of our slaves for a very long time, which I think just points to the South's overall shamefulness, But what do I know? I'm just a disenfranchised Southerner. My mom's house is falling apart. I live in an RV, lived in the ghettos in Jacksonville for years as a kid. Everyone is going through it. It all has to be equal. I get what you're saying, okay? I'm not dismissing that. But I am not necessarily asking you to commit to some kind of reparations idea right now. I'm not even asking you to commit in general. I can't make you do anything, and I wouldn't want to. What I am saying is that once some of these social ills are alleviated, once we're not all so broke that we don't know what to do with ourselves, we are going to naturally want to put everybody else on the same playing field. Like, we will, in my opinion, move in that direction. And I think it's right that we do. You're a side? What do you mean you're a side? What's the hardest drug you ever did? Cocaine. What drug you done? What drug you done, Phoebe Ophi? I want to know. I got to know what drug you done. I've always wanted to know. Phoebe, I tell you what. I always wanted to know. What drug you done? What makes a drug hard? The cultural perception that it is hard. I don't know. I think there's a rough correlation with addiction potential and dependency potential. Cocaine, meth, heroin, fentanyl, they're all considered hard drugs. And I think the reason for that is because there's a high dependency potential and a high addiction potential. Plus some pretty bad side effects associated with all of them. Whereas, weed, you can get addicted to it. You can get dependent on it. But, it's way easier to quit weed than it is to quit heroin or something like that. It's way easier to quit, alcohol, for example, than it probably is to quit meth. I don't know, though. I don't know if they've done a study on that, actually. That's just my assumption. Favorite position, top or bottom? I guess it depends. I guess it depends on the sex of the person that I'm sleeping with. Like, if they've got a penis, I'm more likely to be submissive, and if they've got a vagina, then more likely to be a top. I guess it also depends on the personality of the person I'm sleeping with, Like, if I was sleeping with a person with a vagina, but they wanted to use a dildo on me, By the way, this is like a super impertinent question that you would never ask a random stranger sitting next to you at a bus stop, and I don't know why you would answer. I don't know why you would ask me, but if you really want to know the answer, there you go. Phoebe, you don't have to answer that. I know. I wanted to answer it so that I could then turn around and say, by the way, that's a really disgusting question that you shouldn't ask another human being unless you really know them, because it's none of your goddamn business. But, I don't know if I quite stuck the landing like I wanted to. Alcohol withdrawal can kill you? Well, yeah, but so can withdrawal from meth. Okay, so yeah, you know what? You have a good point. Alcohol withdrawal can kill you. So in that way, you would have to compare it to something like, I think you can die from heroin withdrawal, can't you? From opiate withdrawal? I don't know if you can die from meth withdrawal. I don't even know what that looks like. I have no experience with meth addiction. I've been around it. I've known people that were affected by it. I've seen the effects of it, but I haven't been like close friends with a meth addict. There was a meth person, like a tweaker that would hang out at my house for a little while there, a few years ago when I was living in Carrollton, but, You had a dad moment? You did. What's your opinion on income tax? I think it should be abolished for the bottom 25% of earners, and I think that it should be a progressive tax rate for everybody above that. And I think that corporations, there should be a baseline flat fucking tax rate for all corporations that they cannot avoid and cannot get out of, and apply it across the board. No fucking tax breaks, no donating to charity, and now you get to decide where your fucking would-be tax dollars go. Nope. None of that. An individual taxpayer does not get to write off their entire tax bill on charity, okay? Why you keep putting smoke on the plant? I'm not purposefully. I just have a fan that's blowing, so it's blowing it onto there. Probably illegality as well. Harder drugs are typically more illegal. Yeah. Ultimately, what makes a drug hard or not hard is cultural associations. And I think those cultural associations are mostly driven by addiction potential and dependency potential, but are also driven by illegality, you know? The harder to get, especially legally, a drug is, the harder it's considered. But that's one of the reasons why people have always like objected to the placement of cannabis in Schedule 1, for example, because for a long time, in a lot of states, cannabis could get you just as long in prison or jail as, you know, a commensurate amount of heroin or meth could, you know, but or not meth maybe, because it was I don't think meth is actually a Schedule 1. I think it's actually like Schedule 3 or something. Schedule 2 maybe. Like, you know, there are amphetamines that are prescribed, you know, like I don't know which one it is, but there's like Adderall, I think, is like one molecule away or something from being meth. But you know, once again, it's not necessarily that drugs are bad. It's that certain drugs have a higher potential for abuse and have a higher potential for damaging your body under abuse conditions, and other drugs have less potential for that. Don't require African Americans to pay taxes anymore. Well, that's one. I mean, unironically, that is one reparations program you could do. Yeah. Actually, you know what? Like you're laughing, but how do we feel about that, chat? Like, how do we feel about the idea of like at at 18, when you first file your taxes for the first time, you can file an affidavit with the IRS instead, declaring, you know, with like some kind of documentation, right? Like, hey, you know, I am a member of a black family in America that descends from slavery, you know, like here's my information and everything, you know, and like the government knows everything about us now, so it'd be pretty easy for them to vet that information, and then they just, you know, take that person off of their tax expectations. Like to take that person off the tax rolls, basically. Why not? Like, is there actually anything wrong with that? Would that work, chat? Would that work? When I think of reparations, I think of a boost to benefits that would need to be applied for, added to any other existing benefit program. Jay-Z doesn't need reparations. Okay, that's a good point. That's a good point. Well, I mean, a tax break can still be a benefit, though, but I just don't know if that's sufficient, right? Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know if that's sufficient. I don't know if that's enough. It's like, yeah, they would be, in theory, getting a little free communal labor off of all of us, but does that make up for the literal centuries of forced labor of the worst and most malevolent kinds that we forced on them? I really don't think so. We meaning Europeans, you know? Just because I'm 1% black doesn't mean I've got any fucking claim to the heritage, you know? I do like that my 23andMe said I'm spicy, though. That makes me happy. The problem will come when racists start to believe black people shouldn't get social services and maybe aren't even citizens because we don't pay taxes. Yeah, that's another good point, Black Lark. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, that's a really good point. They would definitely do that. That would definitely be an approach. I think maybe the best way to do it would be to focus on individuals who are in need of it too. That might be part of the approach, ultimately. That might be part of the approach because, you know, like Post was saying, individuals are easier to not that they said all this, but individual applications are easier to review, and if you were doing it through individual applications for a benefit program that could be applied in addition to any other existing benefit programs, I think you would have a better way to you would have a better way to fix or not fix. You would have a better way to exclude people that aren't going to need the program, because ultimately it is the poorest, the poorest fucking, I don't know, the poorest third, I would imagine, the poorest half, something like that, that needs reparations most, I would imagine. If we gave the black community in America Venezuela, then we would just bomb Venezuela again in 10 years. That would not end up good. Neither for our moral conscience nor for the fate of black Americans. Nor would black Americans accept that. What are we going to do with the Venezuelans, you know? There are people living in Venezuela. It's not like Venezuela is nothing but one big jungle. You realize that, right? Just because they don't have the most infrastructure in the world doesn't mean they're nothing but jungle and mountains. They are a developed country. Well, not that developed, but, they're getting there. They got shit. Just look at the video of our invasion into fucking Venezuela. Oh my god, that was horrible. Whenever I was trying to think of that name, fucking 4 different names of fucking different places that we fucked with flashed through my head instantly. I was like, Vietnam, nope. Fallujah, nope. Mogadishu, no. Baghdad, nah, bro. Are you stupid? And then finally, my brain landed on Venezuela. Jesus Christ. We are attempting to conquer this entire goddamn world. I'm pretty sure the world's going to let us. I'm reasonably certain that we're going to get Greenland. We're going to we're going to own Venezuela for the foreseeable future. Probably going to end up owning Cuba. Probably going to end up invading Mexico. Taking them over. We're literally just going to take over this entire hemisphere. And as far as I can tell, Europe's going to let us, because whatever. Whatever, man. Fuck it. Whatever, dude. Them Americans over there can do what they want, man. Who fucking cares, bro? We got our shit over here. What do we need them for? Well, they're going to be saying that right up until the moment where American gunships start training their fucking cannons on London and the coastal cities of France, the coastal cities of Spain. But by then, it'll be too goddamn late. By the time they realize that American conquest has come for their sweet little European, wet dream, they will it'll be too late. We've been selling Europe a ton of the technology that they rely on for their military for a long time, and we probably have back ends into all that shit. So if our allies even did try to turn on us, we could probably just turn all their equipment off. That's the problem with collaborating with the United States, is that the entire world has cucked itself to America at this point. That's why I don't take this Chinese threat seriously, by the way, is because if China was capable of stepping to the United States, they would have by now. If China was capable at all of stepping to the United States, $80 billion worth of loss in revenue is worth stepping to the United States for. They're not gonna, because they can't. They know it. They know it. They know it perhaps better than any other country. They want us to fascistically take over the entire Western Hemisphere because they know that'll give us a little bit more money and market to play with. We will normalize the markets for America-like trade relations, and they'll continue having their most favored nation trading status and all that. I really hope not. Unchecked power, it never ends well for anyone. Well, nobody's trying to check his power. The American people aren't. Europeans aren't. Africa's not. Asia's not. Russia certainly isn't. Nobody's even trying to check our power. We already pretty much live in a one-world government. It's just a show. Well, kind of. Yeah, I mean, like, billionaires from across the world collude. But I think the one-world government we live in is, or the one, whatever, like, is America. America is the hegemon. And everybody says, oh, we're a dying empire, we're losing our grip on power, all that other shit. No, we're not, man. If we're losing our grip on power, then how are we able to invade Venezuela and kidnap their leader and bring him to fucking court in the Southern District of New York without a single fucking retaliatory strike? Without even a really, like, a strong condemnation, Like, we got rebuffed at the UN and condemned at the UN, and nothing has come of that. And nothing will come of it. Because, on some level, neoliberals like this shit. On some level, neoliberals are numb to the idea of land changing hands because they are ultimately themselves capitalists. They don't like that it's Trump doing it, but they don't really care when conquest happens. Yemen tried a little. Yeah, well, poor Yemen. Oh. Central banks equals overlord. Is this just another fucking... Is this JQ shit? Tell me now, is this JQ shit, or is this just, like... Is this garden variety fucking rich people control it all? Or is this Jew shit? Because if you're about to hit me with some who's did it shit, just tell me now. Tell me now. Are you an anti-Semite? Are you Nazi? It's okay if you are. I just need to know. Okay? I just need to know. Is this JQ shit I'm dealing with here? No, central bank and IMF is USA and Europe, controls the world's finances. Okay, cool. Fuck the central bank and IMF debt trapping most of the third world. Okay, cool. I hear banks and power, and I'm not crazy, right? Like, you guys understand why that instantly makes alarm bells go off in my head, right? I don't have a favorite basketball player. I don't watch basketball. Oh boy. But you know what I do? Why though? What do you mean why though? Why though what? Why though what? Why does banks make you think of Jews? No, it's the idea of banks, it's the idea of centralized power centered around banks, and them having, like, control over the world is, like, a very common component of anti-Semitic tropes. So I'm just like, I have a pretty right-wing audience. Like, not my regulars aren't, obviously, but, like, the casual viewers, most of the casual viewers of my channel are, like, right-wing, or alt-right even. And I get hit with JQ shit almost every day. So I always have to ask, anytime somebody brings up, like, banking and its relationship to power, I just have to ask, like, hey, we're criticizing the system. the banks themselves and the idea of capital, right? This is not JQ shit, right? And I would say, 75% of the time it's not, but 25% of the time it is. And the fact that it's happening a fourth of the time is enough to be concerned, right? Yeah, it's sad that that's the case. Banks do have a lot of power. The JQ stuff is so dumb and annoying. I fucking agree. Nazi conspiracy theories are inherently convoluted, so any trope associated with them ring bells. Thank you. Exactly. Yeah. Nazi conspiracy theories are incredibly convoluted. They're kind of fascinating in terms of the sheer magnitude of the stories that people will just flatly make up to discredit and propagandize against the people. It's just kind of, horrific, but also sort of fascinating on a certain level that people could be so monstrous. But um, but yeah, the convolution of a Nazi conspiracy theory means that any of the steps that are involved along that can ring bells. It's kind of like if somebody says, "Oh, we already live in a one world government. It's all controlled by the elites." That is another piece of rhetoric that sometimes is just genuinely said by real populists who are trying to achieve real populist things. And sometimes it's said by JQers, Sometimes it's said by Nazis. Like you have to fucking figure out which direction that shit's coming from. Does someone identify the elites as the billionaire class, the ownership class, which retains ownership and privilege over every piece of land and every business, or do they mean the Jews? Are they just talking about the Jews? Because the whole idea behind the anti-Jewish conspiracy theories that we're talking about here is that that the Jews have this secret cabal that they use to control all power, right? Who the elites are is public record. Oh, 100%. And it doesn't really correlate with Jewishness either. There are way more white people and Arabs in the halls of power. And if we're talking about billionaires and rich people, there are way more white people and Arabs, just of varying varieties. White Christians and, Muslims and Arab Muslims, probably some Arab Christians too, but I haven't heard of any. But I know the royal family of Bahrain is super rich. I know the royal family of Kuwait is super rich. I know the royal family of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is filthy fucking rich. So, everybody cares about the Jewish power brokers, but nobody gives a fuck about the Muslim power brokers, the Christian power brokers, even though they probably represent a greater fucking slice of the pie. There's a number of large systems that control the world: banks, governments, resource controllers, large manufacturing entities, logistics barons, energy controllers. I know I'm missing others. Information influence data. Those are some other avenues to power. Oh yeah, too. You can look up their family trees too. It's all Pokemon. Oh, yes, very true, very true. But yeah, information, influence, and data. I mean, that's basically the whole idea behind compromat, right? The whole idea behind things like the Epstein operation or whatever, or a lot of the CIA spy ops that they've done. The whole idea behind that shit is to garner power, not through money, not through the ability to buy politicians, to sway elections through cash or anything else, but rather through the ability to ruin someone's life at the drop of a hat. Or to make a really good go at it at the very least. I guess not every CIA life ruination attempt has always been fully successful. But yeah, there are a lot of institutions that effectively control the world. It's funny, because we have allowed the merchant, the capitalist, to have such undue power in our society. There are companies like Caterpillar effectively control the world. You know, like if a company like Cat wanted to take over the world, like if they just decided one day that they wanted to be like a private military complex and just take over the world, like they could literally just start programming into all their machines to like start turning on their operators and to start like in ways that are like controlled from some central place. Like corporations are allowed such a long leash, such a long regulatory leash in this country that it would not be difficult for a company like Caterpillar to stage a private capitalist coup on the world if they wanted to. Their machines are in every country, literally every country. Epstein probably linked a lot of powerful people together too. Networking is how you really get to good positions. Yep. One side of my family tree goes back to medieval Norway. I think it's so cool that you're able to trace it back that far. My family is not able to trace ours back that far. But yeah, Epstein was definitely a link between a whole ton of powerful people. If you ask me, that's what his job was. I think Epstein was probably your garden variety rich ass pedo at first, and then I think he got caught up in some shit, and I think that I think the CIA approached him and was like, "Hey, you see, you've got a little operation going on over here, and we'll protect you from what we can if you'll work with us." And so I think he started, um, I think that that's a lot of the reason for all the documentation. You know, maybe I'm wrong, but um, I think the only reason why there's so fucking much documentation surrounding everything that Epstein did that is in the Epstein estate and everything is just because I think he was an asset. I don't have any hard evidence for that other than the fact that we know for a fact that a bunch of powerful people were going to Little St. John's or Little St. James or whatever the fuck it's called, Pedo Island. We know that a ton of fucking rich and powerful people were congregating over there. We don't know which of them were engaging in childhood, sexual abuse or whatever, but we do know that some of them most certainly were. The other one goes back to Portugal and 16th century Basque France and Ireland. No, that's dope. Fuck yeah. You know the whole story. Oh, shit about my family. I know one branch of my family, and the tale goes back, I think, to the 1700s at some point. Oh, I'm tired, y'all. Ah, fuck me. I think it stems from usury, where it gains from money itself and not the natural use of it. Yeah. You may be right. You may be right. I will tell you this much. Modern capitalism is only possible on the basis of usury. So if you got rid of usury, you would probably get rid of modern capitalism as it exists today. It doesn't make any sense to have a debt-based society in a society where you can't make money on debt. So you would have to find some other way to finance shit rather than the debt-based model that we currently use. Would that actually make things better, or would that just fucking bankrupt the country though? Because if it just bankrupts the country, sorry, I'm not an Anprim anymore. Okay, I like my comforts too much. Don't worry, the doctor is in. I'm here. What's up, Riley? This must have been a long tradition. Yes, it was a very long tradition. Hey, how are you? I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm doing okay. Probably gonna get out of here soon, but not necessarily right this second. You guys have one last chance to donate, by the way. Anybody that wants to contribute to the stream, help me out, please do so. You can help your host. I've also got my social media links, not links, but I've got my handles down below if anybody wants to add my Twitter, or my Instagram or anything else. It's down there. Also, what was the other thing? Also, consider donating to CashApp if you have that, because that is usable instantly. Yeah. I just figured I'd chill a little bit since I saw an influx of people. Have you ever tried psychedelics? I have. Love from Chicago. Love. Love, love, love. I have tried psychedelics. I've had DMT, I've had mushrooms, and I've had acid. I've had acid mushrooms I've had acid and mushrooms a ton of times. Well, I've had acid a ton of times. I've had mushrooms a reasonable number of times, and I've done DMT one time. So, I don't think I've done any other hallucinogens though. I'll donate next week, Phoebe. Aw, thank you, Pink Fur. No pressure, anybody. Like, I'm just not, good at chilling, and I have to remind myself to do it. But yeah, I've tried psychedelics. Acid is by far my favorite. I think it's the one with the most profound effects. The one that it's definitely the one that makes me think the most. Although, honestly, one of the things about me is that I have a very active brain. Like, brain. I almost said it like Trump. I have a very active brain, and as a result, I find it very difficult to focus in on any one long thing for, longer than like a few minutes. It's different if it's like I can read a book for a couple of hours. I can watch a movie for a couple of hours. Now, eventually, I'll want to get up and stretch and, throw some water on my face and use the bathroom, whatever. But once the intermission's over, I'm back in it for another hour and a half. But when it comes to mental tasks, like that I have not trained myself for, I have a hard time with that. And I have a hard time just letting myself think about things sometimes, because my brain often wants to overrun itself. And I feel like acid and mushrooms, but acid especially, really help me structure my thoughts in a way that I find kind of difficult after a long enough time having not had access to it. I feel like it helps me see things and make connections that I wasn't able to readily make before. But I will tell you, man, I feel like doing too much acid over too long a time is maybe not the best for your health. Not like your physical health or whatever, but like your mental health. I think I'm just as smart and confident as I ever was, if not better, right? But sometimes I wonder if I didn't lose a little something with how much acid I did in 2021 and 2020. Because I did a fuck ton of acid in both of those years. Do you attribute your enlightenment to mushrooms or acid? Does it help with visions and outlook on life? No, mushrooms make you hallucinate, and then you have to go back to serving coffee. Do what? What now? Once I did mushrooms and the trees came inside. That's awesome. I've taken way too much acid, mostly in my youth. My head is cooked. That's kind of how I feel about myself sometimes. Do I attribute any of my revelations to acid or mushrooms? Yes, some of them for sure. Yeah, some of I wouldn't say the entire process is a product of acid and shrimp. I was definitely a far leftist before I started, fucking around with psychedelics. Maybe not before I started fucking around with them, but before I started doing acid heavily enough and having, what I consider to be a couple of cool little revelations, or not revelations, but, epiphanies. I would say that there were very important, realizations about the planet that it was difficult for me to come to, or that I didn't even consider before I took acid and had conversations with other people while on that same acid. Like, for example, I used to be terrified of death And then I had an experience one day where I was on mushrooms and acid, and I was sitting in line at a rainbow gathering, at a kitchen at a rainbow gathering, I should say. And my friend was basically in line for me, or they were going to get in line for me once the line got a little shorter. And I was sitting on the ground with my friend there, and I like people kept like not looking at us. And I know that sounds weird, but people would like look down at us, but I always felt like they were looking at my friend that was sitting there with me. And I started to get this distinct impression that I was a ghost, and that the only person that I died somehow, and that I, was now a ghost, and that the only person who was aware that I was there was my friend, and that the entire line of people had no idea. And at first, it was a great feeling of sorrow and regret, but then it was like I had this like, I don't know, this epiphany where I was like, wait a minute. If and I was kind of speaking my line of consciousness out loud too. I was like, wait a minute, because at first I just said, I feel like I'm dead, and my friend got kind of uneased and everything. But then I was like, no, you don't get it. I feel like I'm dead, and that's great. I'm fucking dead. I don't have any obligations. I don't have anything to worry about or anything to come home from. I don't have anywhere to go or anything to do. No obligations and no expectations. This is great. I can act a fool. I'm liberated. This is awesome. And they were like, okay, all right, cool. And they started laughing along with me at that point. At a certain point, they did, and like they broke the illusion by um, pointing out the fact that people were kind of laughing at us and my absurd statements, and not in a rude way. They were just kind of like giggling at the crazy hippie talking about how dead she is when she's clearly alive, and happy about it, and that kind of broke the spell a little bit. But I still felt, and have felt ever since, a great relief about the idea of death. I can get creeped out about it if I really think about it too hard, and I get really fucking upset if I think about murder. I cannot handle thinking about people getting killed, okay? But in terms of just my own natural death, I don't fear it anymore, and I attribute that directly to acid and mushrooms. We are up late, Taylor. We are again. We are indeed. Dude, Taylor, I don't know if you're going to hate this or love this, but there's an aspect of my life that I haven't told you about yet. Dude, so Taylor, get this, okay? So, like, we didn't talk for like 6 months in like whatever year it was. Whenever I did acid. I don't remember what year that was. Like, I think the first time I did acid was like 2017, I think. And we didn't talk for like 2 or 3 months after that because you were real pissed. Because I think you thought I was going to like get into all kinds of hard shit. But, right, that happened, right? I spent most of late 2020 and a profound majority of 2021 tripping, or a day or two off of tripping. So I did a ton of acid during that time, but I'm fine. Like, clearly I'm good. I'm all right. I just think it's funny, like you happened to pop in at the moment when we're talking about acid, and we fought over that once. I don't know. I don't hold it against you or anything, though. I think your concern was justified. Well, I don't know if it was justified, but it was reasonable. I don't know how to put it. I think you probably pick up what I'm putting down. Apparently, most humans are lactose intolerant. Yeah, lactose tolerance is not as common as you might think. It's more common in places where cattle and other animals domesticated for dairy have been around for a long time. Have you talked about the ice video? I did way earlier, but we can go over it again. Yeah, so there is a video that very clearly shows a person backing up on a red SUV. They're surrounded by ICE officers. They're all shouting different orders at her. Some of them are telling her to leave. Others are telling her to get out of the car. She reverses, chalks her wheels to the right, trying to get out of the way of the ICE officers. Then you see basically this officer with his gun drawn kind of step into the way of the vehicle more so that he can like try to justify shooting her, in my opinion. Then she floors it because she's fucking terrified and doesn't know what's going to happen. It's just fight or flight reaction. I got to get the fuck out of here. And she is murdered in broad daylight by the ICE agent who had pulled her gun, or who had pulled his gun before he even knew what possible intention that vehicle had. You don't just willy-nilly shoot people in a fucking vehicle, especially like there's just no fucking reason for it, dude. There's no fucking reason for it, man. There's just no reason for it. Look at how bad the roads were that day. Like, she's not going to lead you on a high-speed chase. She can't. Like, she couldn't have led them on a high-speed chase. They weren't even planning on chasing her, according to the video. Like, one of them's telling her to leave. Two of them are telling her to leave. So I just don't... like, you can't make an argument for this. There's just no argument to be made. If you create a roadblock and then drive at an off, how did she create a roadblock? How the fuck did she create a roadblock? She's trying to get out of her fucking neighborhood. Not only that, but that may be your opinion, but it has not been the opinion of the courts. The courts have overwhelmingly upheld that you do not have a right to use lethal force against a vehicle unless you know it is coming towards you, A, and B, you do not have any recourse to get away from it, and C, there is a real and legitimate danger of it hitting you. In that video, you can see that her wheels are clearly cocked out of the direction of any of the officers. Her wheels turn out of the way of the officer towards this way. She's got cops on this side, and she chucks her wheels this way, exactly to try and drive around them and this fucking, what I presume is an ICE vehicle, to try and get out of this horrible situation where she's being yelled at from her east side, leave the premises now, and being told from her west side, get out of your car, get out. So I guess if you're stopped, here's the new standard in America. If you're stopped by a masked man wearing a bunch of body armor and claiming to be ICE, if you don't immediately put your car in park, take the fucking, turn the keys off and throw the keys out of the ignition, get out of the car and prostrate yourself ready to be hogtied, that you deserve murder. That's the new standard in America. Okay? We are literally Russia now. We're literally Nazi Germany now. We're literally just shooting people fucking point blank for no reason at all. Other than, I'm scared. I'm scared. And like I said, you can have your fucking stupid wrong opinion all day long. The courts have long upheld that there is a high standard applied to officers who want to use deadly force against a vehicle, because an uncontrolled but operational vehicle is a fucking hazard, not only to the person that is operating it that may be injured by the shooting, but to anyone who may be in the path of that vehicle that may not have a driver if you shoot them in the fucking head. Thank God there was a fucking telephone pole for the lady to drive into and not some fucking parking lot full of innocent people, right? Thank God, huh? Yeah, shooting someone in the head while their car is in drive and they're on a public roadway is really a great way to manage public safety. It would have been really funny if he would have shot her and then as she slumped forward, she turned the wheels back towards him. That would have been funny. Oh, I wish that had happened. But it didn't. Scared and trigger happy, and that's the American way. Yep. I'm a literal law student. Go read Graham versus Connor. You obviously have zero understanding of how courts have handled his issue. You have no idea how the courts have handled this issue. There is widespread precedent in American courts for cops that show wide fucking, like, you can't just say, I was scared. I thought she was going to drive into me. That is not sufficient. Sorry. You being a law student doesn't make you better than me. And you could just be lying about being a law student. So maybe I'm just an extremist, but I think you should never shoot unless absolutely necessary. Since when is a cop the executioner? According to our law student, Calabi Perez, I guess it's legal. Yeah. According to Graham versus Connor, apparently Graham versus Connor says it's okay to shoot an unarmed person in a vehicle because you think that there's a slight chance you might be hit. According to Graham versus Connor, I guess. According to random internet nobody on our comment section. That we're just supposed to believe by fiat because they say so. The video does show she made contact with him. She made contact with him because he stepped into the path of her vehicle as he was shooting her. She makes contact with him because these officers have literally been trained to step into the path of vehicles to give themselves justification to shoot. The blonde little white girl turned the car wheels away from me, and so of course I feared for my life. Well, yeah, exactly. No, I've never heard of that. Anyway. Jesus. Well, I'm out of water. I'm out of coffee. So I'm out of here. Dying. I will see you guys later. Thank you guys for hanging out.